Bye.
10 or 12 times.
Oh, my car.
Oh, never mind, I found one. Okay. Bye. So yes, you're right. You don't know.
Probably.
I thought I'd wait for Ron, but he's taking his time here, so.
Put a PowerPoint on that. Okay. I'll be able to get to it. I would stay right here if they were pulling.
Okay.
I'm a
Good evening, and welcome to the December 10th, 2014 business meeting and work session of the Richmond Community Schools Board of School Trustees. Please stand for the pledge. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you. And now we are ready for our vision statement to be read, please.
Richmond Community Schools, a community nurturing mind, body, and spirit to prepare students for lives of choice, purpose, and service.
Thank you, Kelly. And now the reading of our mission statement.
Richmond Community Schools guides students on pathways of learning to a future of limitless possibilities.
Thank you, Susie. Now we are ready for our showcase video.
And our showcase video tonight highlights our partnerships. You can't see, those of you who are in the audience can't see, but we have a large poster here that shows over 100 different organizations from around the community that partner with us on an annual basis. We aren't showcasing every single partnership tonight, but we are highlighting and celebrating those. So, welcome the video.
Richmond Community Schools has a great partnership with many different businesses and corporations, and with that we have communities and schools. And community schools has a wide assortment of activities and services that are provided for our kids. And that means we have a site coordinator at every school in Richmond Community Schools. We also have, with that, for example, they help pass out different basic needs for the students. So that could be shoes, coats, if someone needs glasses, if someone needs connection with the local dentist, they help you get them connected. We even have a food bank at Richmond High School, and that helps families receive assistance with different services here also at the school.
My name is Beth Herrick. I'm the co-executive director at Girls Inc. of Wayne County, where we inspire all girls to be strong, smart, and bold. We have a great partnership between Girls Inc. and Richmond Community Schools. We're very lucky to have strong leaders at RCS that have identified the value of supporting students with a network of support throughout the community, and we're so thrilled to be one of the partners that receives that benefit of partnership. We provide students with valuable services. We provide after-school services for girls. in 1st through 8th grade. We provide summer camp services for girls in 1st through 8th grade, and we also do school-based programs, mostly aimed at middle and high school students, and those are partnered with our health classes at RCS, Test Dennis, and RHS, and we serve 1,700 students through that partnership, doing a Preventing Adolescent Pregnancy program, which aims at teaching students how to keep their bodies safe and healthy and delay early sexual activity and high-risk behaviors, and also avoid unwanted pregnancy and sexually transmitted infections. So we're really aimed at helping empower students with the knowledge and information to keep themselves safe, healthy, and make great decisions so that they can meet their goals and have successful futures.
Boys and Girls Club, we of course have Jeffers Unit, but we also have and I know in fact that not many people know is a great treasure, is the Boys and Girls Club at Fairview.
Well, the Boys and Girls Club at Fairview is probably unlike a lot of Boys and Girls Clubs because not only are we located in school there, but I think we're actually part of Fairview School, I feel. So we work closely with the teachers on homework help. Every student receives a snack after school. It's a healthy nutritional snack. It has to meet guidelines from federal guidelines. Also, we have activities for kids 6 to 18 years old. We have a teen room for kids that are 13 and older, and different activities for them as well. At a family dinner on every Tuesday before Thanksgiving. We had 163 people this year. We had door prizes. We had donations from businesses all around the city. It was a great event. It's one time the parents get to tell you that they're thankful for you helping them with their children.
And again, that was produced by Richmond High School students. So I am here to talk about community partners at Richmond Community Schools. And some of you, I'm sure, will remember Misty Hollis brought the Safe Schools Healthy Students grant to us. And through that partnership, we have some great programs, not just nonprofits, but also business partners. So I'm going to go over that for you and get that started. All right. So at Richmond Community Schools, I am the Community Partnership and Engagement Coordinator, and I keep telling people that's really hard to say when you say Bridget Hazelbaker also. So it's a mouthful. So I'm just going to show a little bit. Of course, as you guys can see from the board out here, you guys will have to see that on TV later, but there's a big board out here with a lot of our partners, many partners, and the list is growing all the time. So community partners, we have over 100 community partners, businesses, churches, organizations that provide their time, resources, or financial support for our students. One of those big partners that we have that you just saw in the video is Communities and Schools. Communities and Schools has that basic, the 5 basics they look at, that one-on-one relationship with a caring adult. Many of you here at this table are mentors for some of our students through Communities and Schools, and that's been a great impact on our students. We also have a safe place to learn and grow, healthy start, healthy future. If you look at that photo, that is a dentist in one of our schools providing dental care through the mobile dentist program. So if a student has a toothache or helps with dental maintenance, so kids are not focused on dental pain, focused on reading and learning. A marketable skill upon graduation, the Cruise into the Future program is a huge piece for that for us also, and also giving a chance to give back to peers in the community with service learning. The next piece we have is Boys and Girls Club. Central, Jeffers, and Fairview are great partners with Richmond Community Schools, character development, after-school care. Some of you may have seen in the paper even about the Santa shop that they're doing and all the volunteers we have for that too. So just a great building for our community. Girls Inc. has been doing some fantastic things with our students. If you look up on the left, you'll see some violins. So the Richmond Community Orchestra is working with the girls at Girls Inc. to work on violins. And Karen, I bet that's pretty exciting for your little girl wants to do violin too. So STEM work, science, technology, engineering, and math. Also the preventing adolescent pregnancy in the in the intermediate schools and the high school has been a big partner for Girls Inc. also. So not just the nonprofits, but also the business sector. Hills Pet Nutrition is a partner with Vale Elementary School, and that has been going very well for several years now. Not only do they provide volunteer mentors, but they've also volunteered at back-to-school nights and money to help with back-to-school nights and family literacy nights. They've even helped with bus transportation for field trips. So they even have the Bed in a Bag. If you guys have heard about that program too, they started that here in Richmond.
Of course, we have a list of all of those sponsors on our website. West End Bank has been one of those sponsors with the We Are Savers program in most of our buildings. And if anyone is willing, as a shameless plug, let me look at the camera, is to, if they want to be a business partner, be a community partner, a church partner, please contact me here at Richmond Community Schools, and we'll get you started to the wonderful programs that Richmond has. Are there any questions? All right, thank you.
Thank you, Bridget, and we are just so thankful for you, for each and every one of our partners, because in the end, our students benefit, and that's what it's all about.
It is, thank you. Have a great evening.
And also, I want to thank the students who are doing our videos. They just get better and better every board meeting. So I just want to shout out to them and thank them for a great job. Okay, we are ready to celebrate the joy of learning.
One of our ways that students reach back out to the community, we've talked about the community coming into the schools, our students help us reach out to the community every year. They do it numerous times, but once a year we also have the holiday card competition, and students compete to be the winner of our holiday card that will then be sent out to key communicators and to numerous other people throughout the community. Mrs. Morgeson is making her way to the podium right now, and I would like to ask Chloe Harsh, Michaela Maitland, Mary, I may foul this one up, Mary Angel Martinez, and Alan Lopez to join her at the podium. These are the students who have won this year's holiday card design competition, and Mrs. Morgeson is presenting certificates to each of them.
Okay. You want to hold up your, tell us your name, and hold up your wonderful drawing.
Bring him to the,
Come up here, sweetheart, okay? All right, hold this up so everybody, hold it up this way to the camera.
There you
There. Now, tell them your name.
Michaela Maitland.
And tell what school and who your art teacher. Step right up there and talk right here in this microphone. This is your chance right here to be a star.
I go to Hibbard Elementary School, and Miss Talbot is my art teacher.
Very good. Nice work.
This is third place to Alan Lopez. Okay, she paved the way for you, okay? Congratulations. Now just step right up there and show that off and tell them your name and your school and your teacher.
Alan Lopez. My art teacher is Mrs. Goss.
And what school?
Fairview Elementary.
Great.
Good job.
Congratulations.
And our next one, third place, is Mary Angel Martinez. Okay. Wow. Step right up there. Show off your work. Tell your name.
I'm Mary Angel.
you come get a picture. You come up here and get a picture.
And what school?
Fairview Elementary.
And your art teacher.
Mrs. Goss.
Okay, we have to give her a little bit of fame, don't we? You don't get it all. Okay, and first place goes to Chloe Hart. Congratulations. Congratulations. And Chloe is going to get this entire stack of cards that you can do with whatever your parents say. Is that how it works? Okay. So Chloe, step right up to the podium. Show off your work. Okay.
My name is Chloe Harsh. I go to Charles Elementary, and my art teacher is Mrs. Hugenboom.
Very good.
Okay.
Congratulations.
Thank you all, and keep drawing. And Merry Christmas.
Now, we have the students here, but many of those students are accompanied by some parents, and the parents are to be congratulated as well. Thank you for being here tonight. Thank you for supporting your children. All that brings us to the next item, which is the REA teacher recognition. And we have another video which showcases a teacher who is in the audience tonight, and the video will be a nice introduction.
I nominated Jessica Irwin for Teacher of the Month because she works at Community Youth Services, which is a school in the Richmond Community Schools that works with the most vulnerable of our students, students who are struggling behaviorally, academically, students who may be disconnected in some way. And these students attend Community Youth Services from elementary level all the way up through the intermediate level and receive services on academics as well as behavioral strategies to help them be successful. And Jessica has a unique ability to work with these young people and to make them feel connected again and make them feel loved and make them feel that they can achieve. And that's one of the unique aspects of public schools is public schools work with all segments of the population.
Yes, here at CYS we service K through 12. Jessica services our kindergarten students and our first grade students. She has maybe 5 or 6 students right now, and that can change based on how many kids we get here.
Well, it's kind of a journey that I've been on. I've been teaching for over 30 years, and I got a call from Richmond Community Schools to see if I would come and work at C.R. Richardson. So I was thrilled, so I packed up all my supplies and started teaching at C.R. Richardson and taught there for about 11 to 12 years. Felt like I was giving more and doing more for these kids. I kind of started seeing my little niche of what type of students that I really like to work with. So, of course, we all know that C.R. Richardson was closed. So I was trying to debate where I wanted to go. And I heard that there was an opening over here at the Community Youth Service Program.
She helps us do the reading, and she helps us do sounding out words and blends, and helping us know our ABCs and our vowels.
I found a challenge that I haven't had for a long, long time. Instead of sitting there reading and drilling reading and math in their head, we do a lot of behavior and working on how to get along, how do we handle different situations that come our way. So working here at Community Youth Services is exciting, thrilling, and hopefully helping a lot of the other teachers. So when their children come here, they can teach a little bit easier in their classroom, and we can get their students to learn a few skills to get along and then send them back, and hopefully we won't have them return.
It gives me a great deal of pleasure to introduce to the board Jessica. And Jessica, who was featured on the video, I don't think there's anything that I need to say other than that her contribution to CYS is valued by the corporation and by REA. So thank you, Jessica.
Well, thanks for the honor. I appreciate it. Thank you.
Jessica, before you go,
It doesn't work like
I was
that,
hoping I could
Jessica.
just kind of back.
now, did you bring a guest with you tonight?
Yes, I did. My mom, Dorothy Steens. She had 5 of us went through Richmond Community Schools, so.
You just threw every kid in the audience off that the teacher has a mother. Is that possible?
I know.
Just,
Jessica, what is your, I'm sorry,
oh, no, go ahead.
what is your greatest privilege working at CYS?
I think just being able to enjoy the smaller group size. Working in a regular classroom, I know how demanding it is and trying to meet everybody's needs. So there I really have a smaller group, and we can really get to know each of the kids and really individualize their plan and their behavior and try to get them to understand what you need to do to be a successful student. So that part's really fun.
Anybody else?
Well, it looked like you had some star pupils who were featured on there. How are they doing?
They're doing well. They are. We've sent back a couple of students just here lately that have been very successful, so we're excited about that. This is a real challenging time of the year, as we all know, right before Christmas, and we're starting to get more kids in, which is really good for job security. So, but we're doing all right there. We have our new principal. We love Carrie Wolf. She's got a lot of challenges, but she's handling it very well. So it's going well.
The important thing for people to know about the students who are involved in your program, K-12, is that that's a transition program. Many students are there just for days, or it could be for months, but the idea is to transition them back into the mainstream so that they can be successful.
Right, and we have a pretty good percentage of the kids that once we have them and they go back out to their regular schools that they're successful. But we do also have kids that come back and return, and then we go back and review and practice our rules and skills and send them back. And some of them don't return it right away, and we have them for longer times. So, and they seem to enjoy it, which kind of is scary too, because we don't want them to stay there with us, but they like the smaller group size and the more attention from the teacher. But so there's a little balance that we have to work on with those guys to get them back.
Well, Jessica, we just appreciate all that you do
Well,
for
thanks.
our kids in Richmond
Thanks
Community
for taking
Schools.
time to recognize teachers.
And I've known you for a long time, and I know that you are just a top-notch teacher, caring, and you are a great fit for
I'm passionate
CYS.
about it, that's
You
for
are.
sure. So, sometimes I overdo it, but I am
And
passionate.
we know you work hard, and we appreciate
Well,
all
thanks.
that you do.
I
Thank you
appreciate
very,
it. I
very
appreciate what you guys do too. Thanks a lot.
Thank you. Celebrating the joy of learning involves sometimes programs. And this program that we're going to celebrate tonight, Early College, is one that has grown this year. We've had the Early College Prep Academy, which has won acclamation from several different places. But we are here tonight to focus on the evolution of that program to early college at the high school. It involves some of the same people, but it involves more people now and more students. So I will turn it over to Mr. Millis, who is working with the staff to grow that program.
Good evening. We're here to celebrate several things in this presentation. First of all, it is a partnership, and we're looking at partnerships. So this has been a close partnership we've had with Ivy Tech College. So I'll ask a group of people to join me and say a few things to introduce the topic, but I've asked each one to think about some of the things, their role with this program and how it's evolved. So at this time, if we can have those persons come up here and join me. I will introduce them in just a second. I'm going to read from a letter that we received in November, and it says, "Dear RCS Early College team, congratulations, the RHS Early College application to offer an Associate of Science and Liberal Arts from Ivy Tech Community College has been reviewed by the college and was approved on October 16, 2014. Richmond's Early College High School is qualified to continue moving forward as they implement this pathway for the early college students." So this letter is posted on your board packet on the website. Also, the pathway that we developed. this is something that has been worked on for the last few years. And a group of us attended a conference last spring, and we've been able to put some pieces together. But we finally decided, we'd heard from several people, several schools that had been successful, Ben Davis University being one of those, in putting the whole package together. And we resolved, we're going to do this, we're going to make every effort, and we began meeting. And so I'm going to introduce that team and then ask them to make some comments about what I think it will bring for students down the road. So first, I would introduce Mr. Chad Bolser, who has, and it's funny how all these things kind of fell together. Most of you, of course, know Mr. Bolser, but when he became president of Ivy Tech, he came in right at the point where we sort of needed that final push to make this happen, and so we appreciate Mr. Bolser being part of that. Dr. Jackie Schlichty, who has been our early college coordinator since the inception of the program, and so she has seen it from currently from the 5th grade point of view to seniors in high school in the first cohort. Mr. Rusty Hensley is a director of Career Center and the principal for the early college program. Ray Wolpe, of course, our high school principal. Carrie Ann Polk-Meek, who came aboard with this team and really added insights into the core area, which we needed some insights. So she's a high school administrator currently and oversees the programming, curriculum, and works with students in early college. Ellen Shepard, she became our early college counselor this past fall, and Trey Ronnie, who is a high school English teacher and was sort of the early college program there for a couple years by himself until we began getting a team together. I have asked each one just to make some comments about what this means. It is the possibility of an associate's degree, and that's 60 hours of credit that a student has to earn. It's an ambitious program, but there's a lot more to this, even for a student who doesn't earn the degree. 30 hours would give a great foundation, and that's kind of our goal at this point. So maybe we start with Jackie, and she has that long term, and then maybe Mr. Bolser and the rest of you can chip in.
Well, doesn't seem like it was very long ago when I was standing in front of you all for the first time, 2009. And at that point in time, asked to launch an early college, and I remember my first question is, what is it? And then reading the seminal research and doing all that, all of a sudden, we began with 2 cohorts, 24 students, who are now cohort 1 and 2, seniors and juniors at the high school. So we started with a really small team, but we started with a lot of support, and that's sitting right around me right now, front, back, and everywhere else. And what we learned was that from our beloved cohort 1, really, we learned from them exactly what every student needed. And as a result, we now stand at 330 strong. What began in the one wing at Dennis Middle School in 3 classrooms, you are now seeing an entire wing at the high school. The Hibbard program building has 4 cohorts. Dennis Middle School has an 8th grade cohort. Test has an 8th grade cohort. And the bottom line is we're a pretty good sized family. And the neatest thing is, from the very beginning, the vision was that we would be able to offer an associate's degree. And as is always true, anything worthwhile has its challenges. And there have been those challenges. But the bottom line is, not only will this give students the opportunity to choose the associates if they want, or to knock out the 30 credit hour, the liberal arts priorities, but also those classes will complement the amazing career strands that Rusty and his team have developed at the high school. multitudes of opportunities for the kids. The students are not the only ones that have grown. From Trey Ronnie at the high school, now we have such a good, huge team that there's no way to express the difference that kids are feeling because those teachers are impacting them each and every day as a family. We also have to thank our Ivy Tech partners because I'm telling you that has been another group of people who have become a part of the village, and Chad will touch a little bit on that. I just want to thank you all for the workers you sent because they're changing lives. Thanks.
Good evening. This is really a great day for Richmond Community Schools, for Ivy Tech, and for Richmond, all the current high school students and really future high school students of Richmond High School. It's not a great day because this is the first, and I want to make sure that you understand that this is not the first option at Richmond High School has had for students. But there are actually 7 technical certificates that you can obtain through the career ed, 4 potential associates pathways, even though there aren't quite to completion. But the liberal arts pathway is significant because here's what it says to your students, is that there is a clear way for a student, any student, and the early college has a wonderful program, and we're so proud of that, and we're proud of the career ed portion of that and our relationship with both of those. But Ivy Tech and Richmond Community Schools is saying to any student that walks through the door, if you are willing, you can leave Richmond High School. Now, you can't leave and get your associates until after you get out of Richmond High School. That's really important for me to mention. But you can be as close as possible. So much so that we like to put together a scorecard. And we envision a period of time. This is in its planning stages. But we envision a scorecard where every student that is interested in this program will get an individualized scorecard from Ivy Tech. And you can see in this, we've kind of mocked it up a little bit, where you say, here is the class that I need to take. Here are the credits and the options that are out there. And this actually is the pathway for Richmond High School for our liberal arts associates. And you see the little tallied sheet below there, which is how many dual credits have I earned? Well, 30. How much have I saved through Ivy Tech? About $3,700. How much is it worth if you went to a 4-year school? About $10,000, and that's a very low-level price tag. But here is the key portion of that, is that when you do this, and when a student really goes after this option, they have a wonderful opportunity to go to and transfer to, we'd love for them all to come to Ivy Tech, by the way. But if they are not, any of our public 4-year partners are going to take this associates, a 2+2 program. Now, what an opportunity for a student where we can't be happier with our partnership and the people that worked. I get to come up and talk about this stuff, but the people at Ivy Tech that did a fantastic job, the people at Richmond High School that did a wonderful job of putting this together and really did great work to make this happen. We talked about this a few months ago, but Ivy Tech wants to be a part of the conversation that says we're not just a K-12 environment or a community college environment or a 4-year environment. We are a K-2 college completion environment here in Richmond, Indiana. Thank you.
Always get to follow Chad. That's always nice. We both like to talk a little, so we're sorry about that. But You know, it is partnerships and not, and we've been very fortunate. I've been the career director now for 13 years, and every year we seem to grow and get more dual credits for our students. We've averaged the last 5 years about 1,500 dual credits for our students at Richmond High School, which has been a huge success, and as Chad said earlier, a financial savings. As we get new teachers licensed, there's a process we have to go through. Excuse me. I mean, we have to send transcripts in. Their teachers meet with our teachers. They come over. They have to make sure our labs are sufficient. They have to make sure coursework is sufficient. They look at exams to make sure we have the same thing. And then at the end, we're able to award those dual credits. So it's been a system that has worked. It's continuing to work. I can't thank Bill Gracer enough at Ivy Tech. We've worked hand in hand the last 2 or 3 years, especially as we moved into the core areas as well as the career areas. Looking forward, I look forward to working with President Bolster because we've been talking about possibly adding some other pathways, maybe in the trades area, so our students could leave here with an associate's degree in those as well. So it's been a pleasure, it's been fun, and I truly appreciate the partnership with them. Thank you.
Hello.
Hi.
So this is really worth getting excited about. So I can tell you, just this week it happens that we just finished the process of enrolling 19 students at Richmond High School for dual credit in Spanish, and that obviously will end officially at the end of the trimester, but that's pretty exciting. Last week we just finished up some MOUs and some dual credit for our Chinese students at Richmond High School, and I believe that Mr. Millis included a kind of an overall pathway that shows you a little bit more specifically. You can look at that and look at our curriculum guide and see the classes that we offer and how we kind of married them together. And that was kind of an interesting process, being kind of new to the job this year, but it was a lot of fun. And we kind of went back and forth. There was a little confusion at times, but we've come up with a real solid plan, and it just means, and everybody I think has said that already, a lot to our students. I mean, they're going to leave, whether they're AP, any kid at Richmond High School, not just AP, any kid at Richmond High School has the ability to have an unbelievable number of dual credits as a result of this relationship. So we're really excited. Yeah.
I just want us all to note something. 20% of that A that is over there on the tower of our school grade is career, college readiness, and dual credits. Proud to say that for the past 4 years, we have gotten a 4.0 in that category. And I believe after hearing what you have heard tonight, you know exactly why. We have some amazing people that work at Richmond Community Schools. And I could not be prouder of this team, including, again, we started the evening with partnerships. And what a better way to culminate all of this and thank one of our own, who is now one of our Ivy Tech partners and president. So again, I want to thank Richmond Community School Board. I want to thank Dr. Boroff. I want to thank this team. I want to thank Mark Millis, everyone that's been involved in it, because Richmond Community Schools makes it happen. And we do. We make it happen. And this team just made it happen. So I am proud and I am grateful. Thank you. Does Trey want to say it?
You better.
He's shy.
Okay. I don't know what I'm supposed to say. Here's what I guess I want to say. It's been 4 years since Mr. Hensley and I started with this program at the high school, and every year we get better. And it will just continue to get better. We've had awesome support from the board, from Dr. Boroff and Mr. Millis, and so I just want to thank you very much.
Susie.
I would be curious to know, and perhaps President Bowles, or you may or may not have this information on your fingertips. How many other relationships are there like this across the state with various Ivy Tech institutions?
There are not as many as you would think. I would say there are probably a dozen that are as formalized as this particular process. Now, let me just say that there are dual credit options all over the state by many, many different corporations. What you are seeing, I think, emerging in this region, and I think it would be a fair characterization to say in the region, meaning as we expand out into the 5-county area, because we know the demographics of our students, we understand that one of the barriers to higher education is cost. And so as we see this as obviously a great partnership and an introduction to Ivy Tech, we know that this is a real possibility for the students. And for us to be able to articulate a pathway, and that's really the key. And so you are starting to see, I just got an email of 12 different schools that in the South that are starting this process and articulating these. I think you will see them go throughout the state, but trust me, we're well ahead of where a lot of people are at this point.
Thank you.
Dixie.
I'd like to add just to that, I think our school system is going to be unique because we have several things in our favor. One is we have the Career Center in our high school. For example, at Ben Davis University, they have a separate early college program, but they do not marry the career opportunities just because of its size and the physical layout, because we have a school within a school. So we're going to have several avenues that students may take. And in my opinion, I think we're going to be unique and really considered one of the models in Indiana. So that's my perspective.
Dixie.
And I just wanted to say to Jackie that I think that you have finally realized your dream from the beginning, and I know it came from all those very, very special relationships that you had with the kids and the parents and knocking on a lot of doors.
Well, I want to say thank you a million times over, and then I want to give you some advice. Go forth, continue making it happen, and continue coming back and sharing your great success for our kids. Thank you.
Thanks.
Okay, we are ready for our first public commentary. So do we have anyone wishing to speak this evening?
We have Rod Weiss.
Rod, please come forward. 5 minutes.
Well, maybe less because I've got to get to the airport by 7.
Okay.
All righty.
Which airport?
I'll be speeding.
Richmond.
I want to discuss real quick under the action items on the, oh geez, I got to see it, 7.04. They're wanting to change in the athletic handbook from, it states $30 up to $50. I had a whole spiel here, but I'm just going to really narrow it down. I'd like to know why, because in the memo on board docs, it says due to the increased cost of the letter jackets. Now, first let me say, I think it's still great that we as a high school corporation still pay for a big percentage of the letter jackets for our athletes. We're probably one of very few in the state, if not the only one, probably the only one in the NCC. So I still think that's a great thing, all right? But what's the other $20? They want to go from 30 to 50. It's not due to the increased cost of the letter jackets, because those have been the same price for the last 5 years. I have found that out from the vendor that we get them from. So, you know, it's not about the $20. We're fortunate enough we can afford that. Maybe some other people cannot. That's a 66% increase on some of those families that have to pay that. Now, if we're talking that it is due to an increase on the letter jackets that's going to affect the athletic department, which it is not, because the cost has been the same. If our athletic budget is around $400,000, this constitutes only 3/4% of our budget is what they're asking for. So are we that tight in our athletic department budget to where we can't find 3/4% to cover that? Then we've got more serious issues. So I just want a true explanation of why, because obviously it's not in the letter that was sent as a memo to Dr. Borf to be put on the agenda due to the increased cost of the letter jackets. And if it stated $30 in the manual or the handbook, which was not on the athletic website, because I couldn't find it, my wife finally did, going through the high school website, because when she did finally find it, it had still the 2011 handbook. Since then, it's been revised twice. I had a meeting with Mrs. Wolping and Mr. Carr last week. In the 2014, it still says $30. Now, if the board passed that, there is some provisions put into the policies to where the superintendent can change, but it has to be, let me rephrase that, if he brings to the attention of a shortfall in revenue compared to the expenditures, then there has to be a reason why something will have to be adjusted. So that is my question. I've had that from some other people that have already received their letter jackets. We did not receive a letter. Neither did the tennis coach. And his son got a letter jacket. Now, they have since sent a letter out, which I have a copy of it because it was online. It was sent to the board members, dated November 18th. Obviously, we're talking tennis. Those athletes, fall sports, those athletes got them already. Now, I don't know if they got a letter or not, but I know the folks that I talked to never received a letter saying it was going to be $50. But that contradicts what's in the Richmond High School Athletic Coach Parent Handbook of 2014.
And that conversation will emerge as we deal with that.
Yeah, I just have to speak now because you're going to vote on it before the next commentary, and I've got to leave. I understand this is your last board meeting.
It is.
We're going to miss you. Congratulations on your next job.
Thank you, Rod.
I may come over and visit. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay. We are ready for consent items.
You're always welcome, Rod. You're needed at the airport now, though.
Be careful.
Okay. Consent items tonight. I'm recommending the following items to be approved for consent on the consent agenda. Number 1, or 501, would be the approval of minutes. 5.02, approval of the recommendation from Human Resources, which includes an addendum as posted to the web. 5.03 is accounts payable. 5.04, filing of reports, which would be the monthly financial report. 5.05, 2014 budget appropriation transfers. This is a request for permission. And then 5.06 would be authority for the board president to sign a contract in reference to a case involving our special ed division, A58515SE 2533. Those above items I recommend for approval.
Okay. Motion made by Jeff Slifer, seconded by Kelly Baumgardner. Comments or questions? All those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed, same sign. Motion carried. And now we're ready for reports, discussion topics.
The next item is the review of our CPAS conversations with all the principals. Dr. Parker has a summary.
Okay. Good evening. I'm going to talk to you a little bit about our fall CPAS meetings. And, you know, every year we do our baseline data when school starts, and then we meet with the principals and their coaches, and we talk about the data, and we talk about what that data means in terms of what our next steps would be. So the fall data really is just our baseline data. We look at it, we compare it to where we were in the spring, we compare it to where we were last year at this time, but it really is just that baseline data to help teachers and principals and coaches and interventionists know where they need to be focusing their efforts. Okay? So am I running this or are you? So our CPAS structure changed a little bit this year from our previous years. As you recall, last year we used the strategic plan as sort of our template for how we reported our data and how our principals reported their interventions and their progress. Well, we've, number one, have a new board strategic plan that's not quite in its final form yet. And we also switched from Acuity to SchoolNet. And Acuity was one of our major data points that we used for our CPAS meetings. And so the SchoolNet, we made the switch because we knew we needed our kids to be doing their assessments, which would require a little more rigor and which would have those technology enhanced items available. I think probably at a future board meeting we ought to pull up some of those state samples of what kids will be expected to do on ISTEP, because it is markedly different than things that they've been asked to do in the past. And so the SchoolNet took a little longer to get up and running than we'd hoped. We're just now wrapping up that first round of testing, and really this first round of testing for SchoolNet has been more about learning how to use the technology than really figuring out where we are on those standards. It's just been a learning process for all of us. One of the other things that we did this year is I've always been the feeder of the data, the supplier of the data to the teachers and the principals. And this year we said, you know, you bring us your data. You pull your data together and you bring it to us and you talk to us about your data. And we had much better conversations around the data, I think, because of that decision, because they really had to know their data to be able to come and talk to us. The purpose of the meetings isn't just to talk about the data, because it's over. The purpose of the meetings is to talk about what does your data tell you and how are you going to move forward in your building based on that data. And then we also, when we talk about what are you doing in your buildings, we do have some things that we're focusing on district-wide. In all of our buildings, you'll see in their templates that they filled out, all of our buildings will say they're doing things like close reading or working on writing. But then based on their specific buildings, schools are doing things that are specific just to their building. In the area of reading, we did change our measure for the kindergarten. Last year we used the STAR early reading, early literacy assessment, and this year we've switched to FAST. And it's a computer adaptive program, and really there are no benchmarks available for beginning year kindergartners, because if you put a kindergartner on a computer and ask them to do a reading test when they first get there, there's not really much you can measure. So our teachers did a lot of informal measures at the beginning of the year. They did the FAST progress monitoring piece, but they didn't do the computer adaptive piece. But when I look at our data for the beginning of the year, we're really similar to where we were at the beginning of the year last year across the board in grades 1 through 8. Some of our grades were up a little, some of our grades were down a little, but overall we were at about 64% who were either at or above benchmark or what's called on watch. And last year I think we were at 64 or 65% at the beginning of the year for those same grade levels. The reason that we include the at or above benchmark or on the on watch is that over the last couple years, or last year when we looked at our STAR data as compared to ISTEP pass rates and iRead 3 pass rates, we determined that it was a pretty stringent measure because in order for them to get a match, we included those on watch kids, and so we feel like that's a pretty good predictor of where kids are supposed to be. In the area of math, we looked at our math scores, and again, our math scores are really similar. One thing you'll notice is our math scores are much higher than our reading scores. If you look at ISTEP, our math scores were not much higher than our reading scores. And so one of the things that we've concluded is that STAR is a pretty generous measure of our reading. And so we look at other data points when we're making decisions about kids. We're doing the topic test in our math. We're looking at the math facts fluency that we're doing with all of our kids at all grade levels. We're looking at the progress monitoring data, lots of different data points to make decisions. And so there'll be more questions and more conversations about assessment at the end of the year with teachers again as we move forward into next year. One of the things that we've added this year that had been missing for the last few years was looking at our writing district-wide. Writing is a really difficult thing to measure in a holistic manner that you can just say, yes or no, this kid's writing at grade level. Anyone who's tried to teach writing understands that. But the coaches worked really hard to create some new writing prompts and to build some rubrics based on the genres, the genre-specific rubrics, and also that would give us sort of a two-pronged attack in terms of how we're going to look at that data. So the first one is a yes or no. We would expect a kid in first grade, or let's say third grade, middle of the year, to have this score overall. And it's a yes or no question. If it's a no, then they're not at benchmark, and that's what they're reporting to me, that right now, blank % of our kids are at benchmark. And those scores were all really, really low this time around. Number one, it's that yes, no question. Number two, we put some parameters in terms of length, the expected length of a piece for a student. For instance, a third grade student ought to be able to write a 3-page paper. And so a lot of kids got to know just based on the length. But when we look at ISTEP and we look at the rubrics and how they score ISTEPs, that's the first thing they look at, is how much did you write. So the prompts that we developed are really, we're asking kids to read nonfiction, and we're asking them to respond argumentatively to what they've read. And so it's something new that kids, are being asked to do. The other thing that we've done is we've put together a district-wide writing plan where we have expectations for what students will do, what genre they will do at each grade level during each trimester, and we're working really hard. Everyone is expected to take a piece through the entire writing process from beginning to final edits and a publishable piece once every 6 weeks. And so we're asking our students to do a lot more writing. The second part of that score, in addition to giving me the yes or no, is the teachers then have their rubrics on that continuum for their students so that they can group students for instruction. They can look across their whole class if there are certain things they need to work on, or are there certain skill sets that they can put kids in groups in to work on for writing. Another area that we've always talked about in terms of our CPAS is behavior. And I can tell you that discipline referrals are down. Our suspensions were down a little bit compared to where we were this time last year. Expulsions, I think we had only had 1 or 2 at the time that we pulled the data. And one of the things that we heard at every single CPAS meeting that we had, that the teachers and the principals felt that we had really made improvements in how kids can be sent to CYS. There was a little more understanding of how that process worked. It wasn't such a lengthy process. And the second thing is, once kids were at CYS, improving that transition process for getting them back to their buildings with support. So that was sort of the bulk of our meetings. I sent you the templates where the principals had all completed that they are doing specifically in their building. So I open it up for questions. Hearing none, I'll sit down.
Well, I did want to say one thing.
Okay.
That this form that you used this time was really easy to understand, and I really appreciated that.
Okay. Use it again.
Our next item is is actually an update on our energy management, and I turn that over to Mr. Tidrow.
Well, thank you. I wish I could stand up here and say we've saved $10,000 since March on our utilities, but we haven't. But we have made a lot of progress during these months since we decided to start an energy management process and program. And what we wanted to do today was talk about a little bit about some of our successes, where we're going. Mrs. Scalf has put together some data to show some benchmarks and some data that we're looking at as we analyze that data. But I've asked a few other people to join me. I've got Mr. Ron Mays, who come up. He's our contractor, and Mr. Glenn Slifer. He's on our energy management team, but he's also the area manager for our facilities area. So each one of those are going to talk, and then I'll turn it over to Mrs. Scalf as well. But one of the things that any energy management program has to do is change the behavior of the organization, change the behavior of individuals. And we talk a lot about that at our committee meetings with our teachers and administrators and Representative Board Member Mr. Jeff Slifer. And through the last few months, we challenged our teachers to come up with different things that the students could do, or even go to the students to ask them to design things. And I laid in front of your desks Vinny the Viper, which is a red sheet here. And what Vinny says is, we are energy savers, and be sure to turn off your lights when you leave your room. This is from Mrs. Amy McGee at Vale Elementary. And they've already implemented these in the classroom. They put them on the walls, so as kids are going out of the rooms, as teachers and so forth, they're reminded, hey, shut the lights off. There's also a challenge from the students to challenge the teachers. If they see a light on, ask them to turn it off. I've also laid a couple designs here that our department put together. I should say Pam Lips, Mrs. Lips put together. So we used the We Are Richmond logo, and inside that, please turn off the lights, and a little logo there with the fluorescent light bulb. As we discussed this the other night, our committee members said, hey, pass that out in a format that maybe the kids could color and design their own. So we've sent that out to our schools and let them disperse that, and the kids can design their own or color it, and then put them up next to the lights to encourage that savings. So that goes from the individual building togetherness or connectiveness to the district-wide, that we're serious about this. It's a long-term initiative. It's not just the first year, it's not first 6 months and so forth. We're looking at a long-term initiative. Those of us that grew up in the 70s and early 80s, there is a lot of energy talk then because of the gas prices going up and so forth. So we want to encourage our students to see that as well, that we can realize some savings. Get all involved was a big thing that we talked about. I want to also point out Miss Amy Miller over at the high school. She is keeping track. She sends out some energy management scouts during prep periods to see what the teachers are doing. Are they turning off their lights if they're not in their room? Maybe they can turn off half of the lights when they're in there during prep period. And so she's getting a lot of good data back, but also kind of that gentle shove to the teachers and staff. Hey, we're serious about that, and the students are involved, and they carry around a book and they take notes, and then as a reward, she's going to give the teachers apples or something as a reward to continue encouraging that. The second thing I wanted to talk about was that we are in the process of that data analysis part, where we get the benchmark data that's been collected for, I don't know, 8, 9, 10 years really, from the business department, from the facilities department, that we can look at the usages that we have, real data, electricity, natural gas, water, so that we can look at how we are decreasing the amount of BTUs we're using, the gallons, the kilowatts, and so forth, to compare it month to month, building to building, and so forth. So The next thing I wanted to talk about was ask Mr. Mays to talk about some of the specific things that we have upcoming for the savings. So,
the first of this year, we went around and we changed all the light fixtures in the gymnasiums to more energy efficient through Indiana Energy, where we got credit back and they actually help fund that cost. And we went from a light fixture would take 20 minutes to cool down before you could flip them back on. So one of the problems was that they had a key switch, a special tool that they would put in the light switch to turn it on so that nobody during the day would turn them off. So the custodians would go in the morning, flip them on at 7, 7:30 and turn them off at 4 or 4:30. So we put these light fixtures in and we were still experiencing that type of usage. So now we're going to go back because nobody seems to have those switches or the toggles, and every place you go, it's a different type of key. And so I know you've all experienced some of that. So what we're going to do over Christmas break, we're going into those gymnasiums and we're going to put a toggle switch in just like we have on the wall here, that we can go and flip them on and off, so that when the gym teacher is done or the program's done, they turn the lights off. And we're finding that some of the gyms are only used half of the day or maybe not at all during the daytime. And so we're going to save that energy from those burning all day. And that we're going to put a night light in so that if somebody does try to be cute and turn the lights off, you'll have a light that'll come on instantly and light the area back to turn the toggle switch on, and the lights are back on again. So we're going to do that over Christmas break. Then would like to go to, we're going to talk about Crestview a little bit tonight, and how we're doing at Crestview. One of the problems that we have when we started implementing our program this fall, that it takes time to get everybody prepped on what to do, how we're going to do the heat and so forth. So we want to give you some experience data. But you have to take in consideration at Crestdale that, and we talked about this at our meeting with Jeff, Mr. Slifer, on Monday about the insulation. Back in the 70s, you didn't worry about cost of heat, but you worried about cost of construction. So most of the buildings built up to the middle 70s, or until we had the energy crunch, has no insulation, and in the walls or the roof, or a minor insulation on flat roofs where they have the built-up roofs. So at Crestdale, we went in there and we totally insulated the whole structure and every outside wall, and we put in insulated glass. Now you also have to remember that we increased the building by about 7,000 square feet. We added 2 gang restrooms, which they only had 1 gang restroom before we started, and then each one of the classrooms, which we had 4 classrooms, we put sinks in. So that's the basis on what we're starting with at Crestdale. Now, the other Mr. Slifer, and you can ask him all the questions you want, will talk to us about what we're experiencing right now from 2011 to 2014.
This is going to be a long night, isn't it? I can see it. Good evening, everybody. Just to bank a little bit on what both these gentlemen said is about, Rob mentioned about the BTUs, gas, British thermal units, kilowatt is electricity, and amount of water usage and stuff. And we do have data collected from, this is from the business department. I can go back clear to 2005 to collect data. We've got total usage, we've got square footage, we've got a breakdown to each one of what it can do and where it can go. But part of this portion that I want to bring out to it is when you try to save money or save different concepts of each of the utilities, it's like the BTUs or the gas that you use, you go back on that from what we use and we try to reduce that. Now we can't help, there's some instance to where the price is increased because of the cost and it may not adjust to where it really shows a lot specifically, so you try to reduce the BTUs or the kilowatt hours of usage, and then it recuperates and you can transfer that over to a cost savings. And since they've picked out Crestdale, I went back and done some average monthly temperatures, because you can go back in the National Weather Service and do some temperatures. So I picked out 2 years with the recent, which I picked out 2011, and that building at the time, which is Crestdale, was 49,000 square feet. And as Ron mentioned, we increased that in 2012 and 13 to 56,000 square feet, so we had an increase. So just a quick number, on September of 2011, we used 222 therms, BTUs, and September, same month, we used 175 BTUs with an increase of 7,000 square feet and 4 classrooms. And that shows with the extra insulation that they came back through during construction, had it installed and put, it was actually a spray installation on the roof for what we had to do. Kilowatts, here's a big one. For electricity, September 2011, we used 44,153 kilowatts for that building for operation. That's just for the month. Now, September 2014, we used 29,113. That is a very significant difference.
Yeah, that's a building that has light sensors in all the classrooms and all the corridors. So when the teacher leaves, they automatically turn off. When they come back, they go on, and that's Hibbert and actually Dennis and Crestdale are the 3 buildings we've done that in.
And then the last thing on the thing here is the water usage and stuff. We used 250,000 gallons of water in September 2011. Now, with the added restrooms we had and the added classrooms with the extra sinks and whatnots, that one did increase a little bit, but we only went from 47 to 48,000.
Wow.
1,000 gallons of water is nothing. I mean, that's one toilet.
That's great.
Flush. So that kind of gives you an idea. There's many aspects of it to look for, of what you can do to reduce cost and energy savings, from the education side to the actual usage and the downsizing of reduction. So.
But see, right now, we still don't have the data from, of course, December, because it's not over with, and we don't have it yet from November. So that's why we picked September and that area plus equal temperature. So we'll be coming back to you in the future and go over all the projects that we've done with the data that we can get collected.
One of the terms that Ron used was, when he talked about the energy on the lighting, was night light. It's really not night light, it's a sensor. The lights will be off. So when it dictates or it sees a person, the sensor will come on. So a night light really burns all night long.
At this point, I'll turn it over to Mrs. Scalf. She did some comparisons between the last 4 years with, of course, the current month and November not there. One of the things that Mr. Slifer was talking about here was that cost avoidance. Your net might not be as high with the cost, the actual cash that you're saving, but that gross that we avoid spending more over time by reducing the kilowatt hours or the BTUs and so forth by these energy savings initiatives. But we had talked with Mrs. Scalf about putting together some numbers here that we can start talking about in the future. So.
Okay, before I start, I have to let you know that they gave you the most efficient building that we have right now. So as we go through these numbers, just be aware of that fact. And one thing I want you to know is the 14 numbers, they do include November, and some of them do include December. So as we go through that, you will see that some of them are for the entire year. Okay, so we'll look at gas first. And they spoke to you about how they're measured and the usage. So that's exactly how I did this. And I went through by year. This is the total for the entire corporation. And gas is measured in therms, and we buy them in bulk, so we do get a very good rate on that. But you will notice that we do have increases. One thing to note is last winter was probably one of the worst winters in quite a long while. So while it is up over the year, hopefully this year we won't see temperatures like we had last year. But that's gas. Does anybody have questions on the gas? You also should remember that master planning has changed this quite a bit as well as we look from 12 to 13. Because it happened mid-year, we did have all buildings on at full capacity for half of 12. As we made that transition, it's just something to keep in mind as you look at some of these numbers. Water and sanitation.
I was just going to, I'm assuming that when we look at those years, I mean, last winter was over, I mean, it would have been into 13 and also into 14, and those desperately cold temperatures and everything.
Right. One thing with utilities, though, is they are billed a month behind. So in 14, in January, we paid for December.
I see.
So really 13 is actually 13. It didn't have a lot of the impact that we would have seen in 14 for those really bad temperatures. Those all would have hit us in the 14 billing.
Looks like they did.
Yes, it does.
Yeah. Water and sanitation. Water, you'll see the usage is in gallons. This is only through November. We don't have all of the water bills in for December yet. So I don't have the December calculated yet. But to date, we are higher than we were last year as well. So that is water. Does anyone?
1 million gallons of water. That's a lot of water.
We use a lot of water. All right, and this is electricity, and you will notice a great change in the electric bill, and that is something that we worked very heavily with RP&L this year to get some changes made to our buildings in the rates in which they charge and the way that they bill us, and those changes did significantly impact our billing this year. You will notice if you come to my office and you look at the per building amount, you'll notice that a few buildings have gone up because of that change, but they would have had to have done that in order to qualify for some of the other areas in which the significant savings that we see are reflected. You will also notice that this is with December's data, so we are done for the year on electricity, and you will notice that our usage is up just a little bit, but it is close to the same as last year. Trash has gone significantly down since we had master planning implementation. One thing that I found as I looked through the years is that the Highland and the Garrison areas that didn't have city trash collection were very expensive pieces to trash collection. So we did see some significant savings when master planning came through in that area. And this one is only through November as well. We don't have all of the sanitary district billing in for November or for December either. So does anyone have any questions?
When you had your averages up there for like 2011, was that when we had were the other three schools included in that?
They were total district costs. That's what we actually paid district-wide during those years.
I think what's important for us to realize is you see the amount of money that we spent. You know, over $1 million for electric.
Right.
That's important to realize those, because then if you can have a 1% savings, that's significant. If you can have a 5% savings, that may
Every
not,
little bit helps is
when
what
you
you're
talk
saying.
about those small percentages, someone may be thinking at their normal home utility bill, and it's not really going to be that big of a deal. But we're talking over millions of dollars of expense here, and 1 or 2 or 3 or 5% really does matter.
It does, very much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
We also turn to you, Mr. Tidrow, to talk about the Hibbard Pool update.
As you know, we've shut down the Hibbert Pool, and as of today, the water has been drained from the pool. We have posted barricades around the empty pool. That way, if anybody goes in that area, they don't fall in and get injured, become injured. But we also took the ambient temperature in that area down to about 65, and we're going to watch that, make sure it doesn't drop too low, freeze any remaining water. But we've have that facility shut down. We have the exits that normally come from the building side into the pool area locked. We have signs posted. Those are not fire exits, but we do not want people coming from the school into there, students and staff and so forth. So we have plenty of signs around that area as well, but we have that process pretty much done. We're, the diving well is taking a little bit longer, but that'll be drained by tomorrow. So, any questions?
Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you.
We are now ready for action items.
Turn to Mrs. Scalf for presentation of the donations.
Good evening. Tonight we have two donations that we bring to you. One, we have a donation to Charles. They had a special literacy program, and one of our area businesses, which was Georgia Direct Carpet, donated a rug for that purpose that will stay in the building for future use. And then Jim and Penny Duke donated to Civic Hall for the Proudly Presenting series. And the total of those donations equals $320 this month, and I ask that you approve these donations.
Okay, motion made by Jeff Slifer, seconded by Susie Hively. Comments or questions? All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Motion carried.
Our second item is an additional docket request for December of 2014. This is in keeping with past practice. Mrs. Scalf is seeking permission to do this accounts payable docket. It will be approved in January, and I would recommend that approval be granted.
Okay. Motion made by Jeff Slifer, seconded by Kelly Baumgardner. Comments or questions? All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Motion carried.
Our next item is acceptance of two MAC grants. They're listed in your packet. One is has been earned by Jenny Meadows, and the other one by Kendra Brown. These are for supplies, and this is a total of $961.27 to be used in their classrooms. I would recommend approval of those grants as well.
Motion made by Suzanne Darengowski, seconded by Dixie Robinson. Comments or questions? I just want to thank them for taking the initiative to write those grants and receiving them, and their students will benefit. All in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed, same sign. Motion carried.
Earlier in the meeting, we heard Mr. Weiss address the next issue, which is editorial corrections to the athletic handbook. And Mrs. Wolpe is here tonight, and Mr. Carr. They'll present the rationale for this request, and I turn it over to them.
Thank you. I'm going to pass around some information that we've been collecting information as we all know the price of everything is going up, up, and up. In particular, at Richmond High School, we have always had the philosophy that we want to provide everything for our kids that we can, that are participating not only in athletics but in other areas, especially with our poverty rate. Many schools in Indiana and across the nation are now charging participation fees for students to be in athletics. Frank and I attended a conference meeting today, and we didn't take that poll, but I do know, is it McCutcheon that charges? And Lafayette Harrison both charge the athletes a participation fee. I know in the Indianapolis area, that participation fee is in the hundreds of dollars per sport. So again, we have tried to not go to that with our students. The sheet that I just gave you shows all of the North Central Conference schools and some of the area schools that we were able to contact. The letter jacket has been something that we have felt for a long time that we want to be able for the students to afford it. And so having them pay a minimal price. But as you can see, the trend is not only in the North Central Conference schools, but most schools do not pay any portion of the letter jacket. The letter jackets are very expensive, and again, the cost, what each of these schools, the students have to pay, is on there. As Frank is the new athletic director, and I talked about finances and having the athletic department be financially stable. We try to look at areas where there may be a need. When I had spoken with Mr. Weiss earlier, I had noted and made a comment 10 years ago when I was athletic director, we were able to purchase the athletic jackets in bulk for about $65. Now, if we purchase them in bulk, they're about $110. I actually think it's about $107. Now, that's okay if we have money in the athletic department to purchase them in bulk. The last letter jackets that were purchased were last spring. I believe Mr. Bolzer told us they purchased 65 jackets, which cost $7,000. Again, in looking forward at the expenses not only for uniforms but equipment, as we looked at it and said, we're not sure we're going to be able to buy, how much longer are we going to be able to buy in bulk for letter jackets? So, to not have participation fees, to not charge our students other things, except for, now, teams do get sweatshirts and things like that that they pay for themselves. Those are not required. We wanted to, instead of going to where the student pays for the letter jacket, and that was a conversation, you know, should we just say, does the student now pay for the letter jacket? We did not want to do that. So we wanted to make a $20 increase so that the student pays $50 and the athletic department pays the remainder of that. That may change at the end of next year when we look at the athletic financial status at that time. We're going to have to look at that every year, just as we do in education, because it's going to depend upon our revenue-generating sports. And if we have good seasons and good gates, we can afford to get things. If we don't, we can't afford to get them. Because the athletic department buys all their equipment, all their office supply, everything from gate receipts and revenues that are generated through athletics. That's kind of the small of it.
Well, there's not much left for Mr. Carr to say, is there?
I know. We've been in the car all day, going back and forth to the NCC meeting, so we're both talked out.
Susie?
I'm curious because do we have a history of gate by sports over the last, say, I don't know, 4 or 5?
Oh, yes.
Yeah. That would be, I would just be interested to see what that is, only because I assume it may be somewhat declining. But
it will. The only sport that actually makes money is boys basketball. Sometimes football. all right? There are sports such as tennis, cross-country, that are in the negative because there are no gate receipts for sports like that. So, yes, I'm sure that we could get that put together, all right?
It's a reflection also on our, on our community and the culture we have here in our community.
Right,
so.
right. And we have not raised ticket prices. That's the other thing we've tried not to do, is to not raise ticket prices. Our all-sports ticket is $65. And Frank, you want to tell them what some of the other schools' all-sport ticket is?
Well, in the hundreds, higher than that. Many schools are getting away from the all-sport ticket idea, in part because of the price tag for that ticket itself. I hope we continue to do what we do because we have loyal supporters, and I think they understand how important those donations for their admittance at games benefit the students.
We used to have when high school sports was the only game in town, and every school enjoyed this. Friday nights and Saturday nights was going to your local high school and enjoying a high school basketball game. Well, there's way too many other things to do nowadays. And the tendency is that you used to depend upon those thousands of all-sport ticket holders that you had, and you could count on that money. The pool of all-sport ticket holders has declined and declined and declined and declined over the years. And now most parents are all-sport ticket holders as long as my child is in high school sports. And then when my child graduates, I no longer buy an all-sport ticket. So, and again, it's no one's fault. It's just the nature of the world and all the choices that we have.
I'd like to make a comment. The statement about reflecting our community. We've spent the last 2 weekends with our boys basketball teams at Tech High School, at North Central High School, and at East Central High School, and our community numbers were larger than the home team at all 3 of those games.
Oh, wow, that's awesome.
Yeah. So, I mean, it really
And our
reflects...
donation to their athletic departments was probably larger in
Yes,
their communities.
they like
They would
that.
have-
Yes,
they
they
have
like
their commitment on the
that.
schedule,
When you
yeah.
go on the road and you bring a good crowd, that's
Right.
yeah.
That's awesome.
Under the athletic policy, what can those jackets, once the student receives them, can they be taken away from them?
They've earned them.
Okay.
We have not done that.
Okay. I was just interested to
And
know.
because they are paying for part of it too. So
Well, going back to the cost of it, I remember when I got my first one, it was taken away because my girlfriend was picking it up from my...
was it Charlie Hilton?
Yes, it was.
Because
It was.
Charlie Hilton was known for taking jackets away if you didn't live up to.
Well, there was back then the athlete knew that jacket and that letter belonged to the school until they graduated, and there was something that was signed actually upon receipt of that you would abide by the code of conduct of the athletic department, et cetera, et cetera. We did not pay for it. I did get my second jacket back, minus all the chevrons and everything. And thank you, Amy, for picking up my jacket and carrying it over your shoulder for me. But anyway, that's another story. Nevertheless, as a result of that, once those students earned those jackets then and up until whatever point that they were paying for a portion of it, they knew that any misbehavior or anything else could be that jacket could be taken away from them. We also saw fewer involvements with students who participate in extracurricular activities involved in other things that led to disciplinary actions at that point, because one of the most important things was coming to school. I want to get my education. I want to get my letter jacket. And I knew that if I could wear that for 2 years, I better be on my best behavior because at any moment it could be taken away from me. So just point of reference.
I wanted to ask, because if I understood what Rod was questioning, the main thing that he was questioning, I don't believe was necessarily the amount of money that the jackets were going up, but the fact that it was in the policy handbook, the athletic policy handbook.
It did not, right, it did not get corrected.
Okay, so I just wanted to ask, so how do we ensure, because I believe that we approve those handbooks like at the beginning of the school year or in the summer or in the spring, I don't know, sometime before that year starts, right? Is that
Right,
correct?
I think, yeah.
So,
July, okay.
So how do we ensure that what is placed in that handbook is valid and good throughout the year?
Right, well, we,
Or-
and I, to be honest with you, Linda, unless somebody like a parent would look at that and bring it to our attention. You know, I would love to say we are going to hand you a perfect, no mistakes, but I've learned, as old as I am, a perfect hasn't happened yet. And I would hope that we would go over that extremely well and make sure we dotted every I and crossed every T. So-
Maybe Mr. Cross can answer this for me, or maybe you guys can. So is there some kind of disclaimer or something that can be placed in the handbook to say, you know, we have done this to the best of our ability, but it could be that changes might happen?
That, you know what, that's, yeah. The
I mean,
changes could occur.
Or do you have to put the price in at all? I'm not supposed to ask questions.
Well, that's a good question. Because usually you don't put the dollars
Right.
in when you're doing handbook kinds of things. because
And
of that.
maybe because, as I stated before, it could be, you know, again, depending on gate receipts, we can't predict how our athletic teams are going to perform.
Well, I
And
was just
so,
thinking that
yeah.
sometimes we're constantly doing policy reviews from board policy reviews and updating and adding new policies. So what we do could certainly affect the handbooks also. So I was just thinking that
Right.
perhaps if we could put something in the handbook that would allow those things to be understood, maybe that would be a little more
I think that's
acceptable.
an excellent idea.
Yeah, I do
a
too.
good
Thank
idea.
you. That's a great idea. That is a great idea.
Well, it's almost, 2014's almost over, and I think that's my first really good idea this year. So I've done it.
Yay!
Suzanne?
Well, because the other thing that happens is even at the board level, if we're reviewing policies as we go, then whatever you've put in print may become obsolete because of a board policy change
Right.
that's happened over the course.
Yeah.
So the
Yeah.
idea of saying, this is this is what we know to date, and then the other thing, the other part about that you could do, and you can do that without worrying about shelf life, is we probably do need to make sure that whatever's on the website is up to date. Because that
Yes.
can be
Yes.
dynamic, and that can happen as quickly as changes are made. So
Right.
that's the trade-off, where you say the print version was right as of July, any changes will be made to the website or something to that effect. So, and then I think I might consider taking the dollars out of the
Yeah.
handbook. Because
That's
then
a
as
wonderful suggestion.
then as
Yeah.
the prices go up or down, or I wouldn't suggest going up and down, up and down. I'd
No,
say
no.
it's 50, but
Yeah.
the chances of the jacket getting more and more
Right,
expensive.
right.
That way, when the student earns the jacket, that's when you inform the parent,
Right.
well, your part is $50.
Or use a percentage and just make it 50%.
Or
I was
whatever.
gonna-
Because
That's what I was
just
gonna
because you
say.
put 50% in it doesn't mean you have to charge them that full amount.
Right. That's I
Either
think
percentage or no dollar amount at all is what I would
there was
say.
another school that I think that said the student paid for half of the jacket. So
And if you decided to charge them less, I don't think they'll
no
complain
more
about
than
that.
Yeah, and we, by the way, and I'm sure you already know this, but we would never deny a student a letter jacket
You'd find
because
a
they
way.
couldn't afford it.
Sure.
All right, there are always people willing to step up to help out.
But it kind of, as Aaron alluded to, that letter jacket is still very, very, very special.
Yes.
To those families. We notified the families that they were getting a jacket. We awarded 42 jackets, and the letter was sent late, in part because of our academic calendar that fall break hit, and then we had a week, and Tuesday following that was the awards presentation. So when Jane came back to work in that week after fall break, got the letter out, and even though they were received late in the mail, less than a week before the event, only 3 of the 42 people did not pay by that Tuesday for us to give them that jacket at the awards banquet. And what we did with the other 3, we gave them all triple extra larges that they wouldn't fit. That we knew that they would return those. They got the right size.
It's always a strategy.
Yeah, really.
Sly Fox.
Did you learn
I'm
that in
good.
college?
Over Earlham.
Thank you very much.
Thank
We
you.
Okay,
appreciate-
and thank you. We
that.
appreciate it.
So we got to,
You have a recommendation then?
Oh,
we
we
had not
have
made the
to.
motion. I make the motion.
All right, motion made by Jeff Slifer, seconded by Susie Hively. All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Motion carried. Thank you.
Next item is a service learning policy. It has come to you just in a slightly different manner than most of our policies because of the nature of the policy. We have service learning going on right now. And we have had a general conversation among the staff. This has been with principals, it's been with the REA, it's been among us. And it was really an oversight that we didn't have it to begin with because we do have the practice. Misty Hollis has been in charge of this policy. She's done some research on it. I asked her to present this, and we'd actually like to present this for first reading as opposed to sending this through the policy committee, which is overseeing several policies as we speak, and we'll be bringing first readings of other policies to you in the next few meetings. So, Misty.
Thank you, Dr. Moore. I think it's justified to do this tonight when we talk about community partnership, because service learning has to do with engaging in our community and our partners. And it aligns with your new vision about trying to teach service and having engaging our students in our community as well. So we have met with our principals about this policy. We've met with REA in discussion about this policy, received their feedback, and every stage between cabinet, principals, and teachers, we have received feedback, and we made changes based on that feedback to bring to you. So we are requesting that the policy would cover these areas, that service learning should cover the following criteria: a link to curriculum, that there would be youth voice, that the youth would participate in planning what that activity would look like. Obviously, partnerships would be very critical to service learning and engagement, and aligning those partnerships to the community needs. And reflection time, having time to reflect how what did the students learn? How did it affect them? How did it link to curriculum and what they're learning in the classroom? And then the last piece is evaluation, and that we know from our partners that we're connecting to in service learning, how did it work for them? How did the students evaluate their process, and how did the teachers feel that it went as well? In all reality, as Dr. Borf said, we have service learning that's happening already. But we just wanted to align it and make sure that it's consistent and connected to your vision that you've planned and adopted as well.
Kelly?
Should I wait till the motion's made, or can I ask a question now? I just wanted to know, so are there separate guidelines then that to go along with this?
We have administrative guidelines that we have submitted to the principals that they are reviewing and submitting that really
Okay.
lines out that forms need to be completed, the type of form that the principal would need to know and give permission to. If there's service learning that's happening outside of that building, they need to give permission to that. And then the partner, if it's happening outside the building, the partner, there's actually a plan that happens, it's in writing, that the principal would see as well. So yeah, we will have some administrative guidelines that will be attached to this.
Jeff?
As I was reading through this, and since we had a not too good experience 6 or 8 months ago, I was wondering, would this be a good place to put in some kind of a risk analysis or a risk assessment, that they are actually part of the process with this policy as we go through some kind of a risk analysis, so that could also be submitted with how it links with all of this stuff.
That could be a part of the approval process that the principal goes through.
Administrative
I mean, make it some. I mean, because I think if we do a risk analysis and ask our questions, how
Good idea.
I think so too.
Are there any risks for the students and those types of things? Go through that.
It's a great suggestion. We also had discussion of how many adults per students, because each project is different, and making sure that we have the right amount of adults to students.
You can actually include that in the risk
Be
analysis.
part of the risk assessment, perhaps, yeah.
Sure. Be happy to do that.
But would we, so if we're going to lean toward, that would not be part of this policy then? That would be part of the administrative guidelines?
It'd be the guidelines, because it would actually be incorporated into the forms.
Okay.
And we have forms being
Process.
created.
Okay. Just wanted to make sure, so I know I didn't, when I'm voting on, I'm not voting with an amendment or not.
Well, and I just want to say that I really like this because it is a way to connect kids with what they're learning with real stuff out in the world. And I think service learning gives tremendous value to kids.
It formalizes the process too for me, which is what I appreciate, because we have had students doing projects forever, as long as I can remember, and collecting cans is great, but why, connecting it to the curriculum, helping with a reflection afterwards, all those things only ratchet up the learning that's going on in the service learning. The service part's easy, it's making that attachment.
Well, the
So-
problem, we tend to look at service learning as events.
Yes.
And it's not an event.
That's the
It's a
other
way
part
of
of it,
thinking. It's a
absolutely.
culture that we're trying to create. And so that's what this policy has been drafted for, was to create a culture rather than an event.
That's fantastic. I totally agree with that.
Okay. Do I have a motion? Dixie makes the motion. Kelly seconds it. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Motion carried.
Thank you.
Thanks for that great policy.
Thank you.
Next item is a resolution regarding our, the board's decision on the Garrison property. It is posted. I would recommend approval of the resolution. You may wish to have, it's your call, you may wish to have the secretary read through that, but it is posted to the web.
What's your pleasure, board?
I would have the secretary read through it.
All right.
Well, I think
That's
it's
great.
important because I think the public needs to hear that we've determined.
Okay, secretary.
Whereas the Richmond Community Schools, RCS, is the owner of certain real estate consisting of a 12-acre plat of improved land located in Boston Township, Wayne County, Indiana, upon which is situated the building known as the Paul C. Garrison Elementary School, the property located on Nee Warner Road, slightly south of its intersection with Wolf Road, and whereas the property has not recently been used for school purposes by RCS, and it is not anticipated that the property will be used for such purposes in the foreseeable future. And whereas the property is no longer listed as an available school site on the Indiana Department of Education's listing of public school sites no longer used for educational programming activities as provided in Indiana Code IC 20-26, 7-1, et sequata, and whereas, did I get that right, Ron? Whereas the expenditures necessary to maintain the property when considered in a view of the public, in the view of the fact that the property is not expected to be used for school purposes, cause this board to conclude that the property is burdensome to the RCS and to its taxpayer constituency. Now therefore be it resolved that the board finds that the property is not needed for school purposes and is burdensome to the limited resources of the school corporation, and be it further resolved that the superintendent shall cause to be conducted 2 separate appraisals of the property by 2 persons, each meeting the qualifications and requirements of Indiana Code 36-1-11-4B, and be it further resolved that the superintendent shall thereafter report to this board the results of such appraisals for such further action as this board might then deem appropriate, dated this 10th day of December 2014, Richmond Community Schools Board of School Trustees.
And I will make a motion that we accept this resolution.
I'll second that motion.
Motion made by Jeff Pfeiffer, seconded by Aaron Stevens.
Ron had a
And are there comments or questions? Ron?
Oh, yes, I reviewed it very carefully, and I would suggest that we correct the misspelling of the whereas and the clause, third whereas clause.
Yeah, the
Other than
fourth one down.
Okay.
Really?
Make note of that, Ally. Thank you. Okay. Any other comments or questions? All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Motion carried. Thank you, Aaron, for reading that.
Thank you, Jeff.
Next item is we would like to present for your approval some MOUs regarding the program Kids Read Now. I turn to Mr. Millis for some background on this.
Yes, we participated last year for the first time in a program that attempts to alleviate some of the summer slide, so to speak, for reading and partnering with Kids Read Now. That's really more of a partnership, and I'd ask that we approve the MOUs, but they supply the funding and also work with community partners to fund it. And there really were very few drawbacks, a lot of positive comments from kids and parents. And we can withdraw for whatever reason. We feel like we don't want to participate with a 30-day notice. So I would ask the board to approve that partnership and that we sign those MOUs. And there's 6 of them, by the way, that I just posted one.
Okay. Do I have a motion? Motion made by Kelly Baumgartner, seconded by Susie Ively. Comments or questions? All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Motion carried. And now we are ready for our work session.
The work session tonight is on some budget adjustments, and to set the stage for the conversation, and Mrs. Scalf is going to present some projections for next year.
Okay, tonight we're going to look at the income and expense analysis that we have in place for the start of the school year next year. And there are some things that I just want to make note of as we move forward, and that is our revenue will possibly change in April of next year dependent on ADM. So this is what we're looking at right now.
Really?
Yeah, it's very small. I'll try to make it bigger.
Try about 300.
Is that
That's better.
good?
That works.
Okay. Right now, this is what we're looking at as far as our revenue, and that's all things being equal in February for the remainder of the year. We know that things change, and this number is a moving number, just as all the budget is throughout the year, and we do watch it. One thing I want to make note of is as we have this session, the reason why we're having it is because we always hit a balanced budget, and the goal here has always been to come to, at the end of the year, spending no more than we bring in. So one thing as we think about this is that that is the ultimate goal that we will set, and we will hit that target. It's just that this year it's a little bit bigger target than what we sometimes have. So as we look at these numbers and we come to the start of the school year, as we look forward for next year, we know that there is going to be a necessary budget savings of $500,000 plus. So we are starting there. As I know things, I will relay them to you if that number is changing, if it's growing or lessening. That's something that we do discuss periodically, at least every quarter, and when circumstances arise, they come in quicker than that. So that is the target that we are looking for right now, and so tonight we are going to ask for your help. We have come to the corporate administration. We have gone to discussion, and we have opened the talking areas of the budget to possible savings areas, to areas that we can reduce spending or create greater efficiencies throughout the district. And tonight we are going to open the door to the board for a brainstorming session that is for that purpose as well. So how would we like to begin the...
Our thought was to spend a very, very brief period of time, maybe 10 minutes, 15 minutes, breaking the group up into 3 or 4, and just brainstorming. That's it. We're not looking for strategies tonight. We're looking for ideas to create strategies. And we've done the same thing with the REA. We've done the same thing with the principals. This is just to get the conversation moving and generate some strategies. So I'm not sure what the best breakup would be to get the best mix, but we would like to have a group back there in the corner. We need to drag a chart over there, one over here, and then maybe one could just stay here. Why don't we just go ahead and number off? Elisa, you're number 1.
Oh, I know.
We know that.
You walked right into that one, you know.
Walked into that one.
Mm-hmm.
1, 2.
3. How many groups you want?
3.
1, 2,
3.
1.
2.
3.
1.
2, 3,
1.
2.
Okay.
Well, before we break, is there, I mean, we don't have, there's no parameters?
No, there are no parameters. Brainstorming is freewheeling.
Just brain, okay.
I should have asked for the 500-page budget document first. Just kidding.
You'll have a cabinet member in
You
each,
don't have that?
in each of these groups, and I think you'll have some ideas.
Yeah.
Well, by not giving everybody 500.
Group 2 is here.
Can I change groups?
If you want to.
Where's group 1? We're group 1.
3 is where?
We're going to go right there. You're 3, right, Mark? So 3 will stay here.
We got Karen in group 3?
2's up here.
Oh, we got the leader. No.
I'm in 2.
Oh. We number 2. We 3. Where's 3 at?
Number 1 before we do number 3. We're right here.
Over here, right?
thought I was a 10 myself.
Right there. 2 is right here, Barb.
This is 3.
Are you the leader of our group?
We get started.
Pretty good. Budget target.
You know what, I'm great with budget. Just nobody listens.
So good,
I just ate one.
Nobody's there.
They're delicious. And I'm so hungry.
And there's money there, we just don't know where it goes.
Do you have any ideas?
We just don't know where it goes.
In the red. I do have an idea.
All right, let's talk about the school though.
I was going to go 4 because I saw 3. Okay.
Well, a couple things that
Well, we discussed semesters.
restructuring.
Look at that
I think
because we know there's some stuff
balancing
restructuring that piece.
10 people,
as
Examining that.
classroom sizes.
I forget you write with the
We're
wrong
pretty
hand.
tight now at the
I
elementary.
know, that's why I don't usually write.
Try to go about.
I would like for
reducing
us to look at,
staff, which is one of the biggest points, trying to get through
You know.
attrition probably is.
Yeah, yeah.
They have
not done, but
done their share. of the last
Centerstone?
few years.
Centerstone.
We've
Service,
talked-
so maybe our support service partners, maybe, because I think that even is bigger than them, maybe look at CIS, even though they're doing good, are there
Second year.
things we can save there?
Intermediate.
Centerstone,
School.
CIS, Boys and Girls Club, all of that.
In this building,
Well, since we're talking.
well, and that includes things like busing and, I mean, all kinds of stuff.
Right, after school, all of it is.
We've got, I mean, we've talked what, 28%, 27% in benefits?
And is it just a given that we'll look at retirements no matter what? Or do we
Yes.
have to write that down?
It's a given, but we,
I
we
mean,
can write it
seriously
down.
though, I mean, a few years ago.
But I mean, that's always our first savings, and we know if we can meet as much of
there's
it
no
that way as
reason
we
to-
can.
So it would
Yeah.
be interesting to go back and have that comparison across those.
But you had
We looked
mentioned
at
you're
all
already
of the
looking at overtime.
Overtime, yes, yes.
We were in the top 5%.
Overtime, and really, it's not just overtime, but additional hours, maybe that are unnecessary, or that we
We
can.
have also discussed the
Flexible
bring
hours
back
or
the table of what cost effectiveness of trying to go back to semester.
As teachers, we never knew what overtime was, did we?
We just.
We did a
We
lot
did
of
it, but we
overtime,
just were
but-
never paid for it.
What
I've
about,
never had a job with
what about our supplies?
Increased AP tests.
We can look at it. I do know that our supplies are really tight. We've done past practice, especially in recent years where we've been able to do online searching, but we can look at purchasing power, maybe is the way to say it.
Yeah.
Maybe we buy more in bulk, maybe we do things like that, which we are actually
There's some things.
start doing more of that, especially on the custodial end.
The problem with that one though,
With that volume
what
of
you're
co-oping
saying,
is
that's
other.
not something that we can do in 2000.
It could.
Yeah.
We do
Yeah,
have
we
to
did.
do it with a couple of
Right.
national groups that we actually
We're
get
having
some money back.
conversations, they're
Purchase
working on
through
some
them because the purchasing power is
spreadsheets.
so much bigger.
Well, but it, I mean, because I
But
think
it
we
could.
have to have a lot of.
I think that shared services could really help that purchasing power too.
Yes.
There needs to be an
We did look
education.
at co-opting.
A way.
For that, we could.
I think
What
with the
about,
parties involved in that, realistically, you're probably looking at a year and a half.
Do we have everything in the,
You're looking at
in the
18.
right place? I mean,
I
like,
would be surprised if you could get it switched.
would there be any place in the general fund that could be switched over to Title I, Title II?
But if it's saying, because they tightened up how that works, and so they'll call it supplanting. So we can't do that. They really changed the way that dynamic is.
Well, but I
But
understand that.
there is consideration.
I was here
There
the
are
first time.
areas that can be moved to CPF.
You're probably back
Problem
years
is doing that is CPF's already low. So, but it's considering, I mean, we can consider it. Technology can be moved.
Not for testing reasons,
Any equipment purchases can be moved, and some of the maintenance personnel can be moved. We can't move supplies, but we can move some of those guys that are certified and have special credentials. So we can look at that.
In order for you to make that change.
Well, I think, we have to consider everything.
Right, exactly.
So,
I'm gonna put.
Well, and everything touches everything. That's the other part of it, you know, it just.
It would kick us in the butt, that's for sure.
Yeah, I don't know. I'm not saying we can't look at it and discuss it, but
You're talking about from a time, so from a strategy standpoint, you're saying.
I'm not so sure that we
This
can
can be
count.
on the table, but we have to look at the timelines of what can we do now, what do we need to do in 6 months, what can we do here?
If you stay with the trimester, can you still cut or increase? Isn't that one of the problems with some areas you have 10 students? Some classes.
You're talking about the secondary
Every
side
year
of
in
the high
here,
school,
I mean, we
classes that have 10 students in it.
There's only so much you can
Staffing
low-hanging fruit.
I mean, that's what that
So we're looking at.
this is
changing
when
the
it
way we
really
do
gets
business.
creative.
Right.
Yeah, and the last place you want to go is the class.
I'm just,
Right.
I guess when I'm looking at the cash flow for 2013,
Well,
it's uncalled for stuff that we can cut now.
How about looking at,
60 days.
number of days
I think that
on
would be a great
contract?
strategy if we want to look at 2016.
What about
That's a thought.
Is there a way?
adjusting the administrators?
Well, I think,
And consider hours per
actually, I
month.
think
Would we
central
consider
office
that?
reorganization.
Or
I-
hours
yes.
of opening, I mean,
I
any.
think we have to.
Just brings,
Right, I mean,
But I
anything
also
to me
think
is open.
that should be
I have no problem with
complete.
anything.
they're amazing. The detail's fantastic.
the ones over there,
I haven't, the sunflowers, I might buy one of those.
yeah, they're so good.
I love sunflowers, I might even buy one of those. Somebody wants to sell me one. It's fantastic.
Would we even see maybe a 4-day work week? I don't know that it would save us, but we could look at it.
No, I think we have to look at all options.
Well, I think any
It would be interesting.
retirement resignation needs to be looked at carefully.
At like a 4-day work week rather than a 5. And I guess that is
But you would rotate people, is that what you're thinking?
hire me as the superintendent.
I read a couple articles where schools were shifting to a 4-day school week, and they just went an extra week rather than a day.
And I know they do that in the states that get really warm.
Right.
Evaluation or something
Right.
like that, is that better?
Yeah, well, just.
Should put
yeah, I
transportation
just
up there.
think You know,
Did you
Like
already do
saying
that?
we have to restructure.
I don't want to
it.
say, I'm going to say,
Because I was just focusing general fund, but it is gonna be a.
there's no evaluation there.
Okay, so does that make you feel better?
Yes.
Okay, good. I added a word, I'm excited about that.
And you spelled it correctly, so that's good.
Agents.
Thank you. Aaron, your thoughts? Is that unexpected?
I would say there is something to be
Any
said
you want to
for,
share?
and the right word might not be, but,
How many basketball games are played at Test
like
or at Dennis?
extra personnel.
So you have to pay for
They do
sports?
really great things, but are they necessary to the classroom?
Not too many. Are
So
they all
extra
primarily?
personnel as in-
Like in behavior or in, are there things about that that we need to?
Well, it's brainstorming, so you
Yes,
want to at
I
least
mean,
evaluate it, is what you're
It's
saying.
just, do we have people in the buildings that, while they service us greatly, at the end of the day, if we have to cut, is that an option?
So I don't know.
Would it save us? Would restructuring this piece or making them not full-time, part-time? I mean, because we don't want to touch the classroom, even though it's good.
What about the idea of
Those service agents.
Well, I'm just saying RCS employees.
paraprofessionals, those kinds of
Yeah, I
things?
mean, re-looking at how many
I
per
thought we
student.
with the paraprofessionals, I mean, we rely more heavily on them now. Because people see us at all different don't so afraid of.
Right, and they are.
I know we spend a lot on special ed. Is there any tightening up? I know
Well-
that you have tightened up some.
Yeah,
But
And I'm paying for a lot of things out of grants that we never used to pay for. Karen and I tried to work, how to do that and how to.
What about,
Stretch, Our issue is,
utilization of
we're going up.
volunteers.
We're going up in some high needs kids. So, and we're losing, we're losing our paraprofessionals as you see it. They're either going to Center State or Meridian, or they're going to go back to school. So it's really hard to keep consistent, even though you guys gave them a raise last year. Still, it's hard to keep those.
Well, and it depends on which area too. If they're always going to move. That's the part that we're finding is depending on if they're in just the classroom environment in the elementaries, we don't really see shifts all because
benefactors could.
why not tap into our
Donors, absolutely.
You know, that is a good idea.
We have not asked, and I know we've been to.
I guess when we're talking about long-term, short-term, this would have to go back to, would this have to go back?
Especially if there's specific projects that we know.
For other.
Well,
I think
you
that
know,
could be
I
a
know
nice-
we have lost
Yeah,
a lot of students. So as we have lost those students, have we
Out of town.
ensured that,
We pay for gym membership. We pay for-
that our personnel is,
That's
I don't
all
wanna-
in.
imbalance, maybe. Is that what you?
well, I'm thinking especially like at the high school. So are the classes at the high school,
In the paper, it really just looked like nothing.
you know,
Do we truly, I know we
or
want.
are there, or not just at the high school, but in any school, are we as,
Those people are gonna do it on their own anyway. Because you care. They're gonna do it on their own anyway.
It's pretty hard to get the number right for last year.
yeah.
Like I come up 1 or 2 days, 2 days short.
There's a way to work that, but it
It's kind
sounds.
of hard to get it, but there are people that do it.
Degree of loss of students.
How to spend that money out?
Student population.
Does it reflect? You might see that if that
So
structure
I
changes
guess-
from trimester to.
But then again, you're right though, when I was first initially thinking about that.
Back to that.
I
know.
There are some, now, just so that you understand discussions on the semester that we have preliminarily looked at, is there are changes to the testing structure. The semesters will run into that.
Which, you know, we've gone to the high deductible.
We
so
saw that being a possibility.
that
Well,
went
like,
in
like,
recent years.
well, like this.
Well, I guess, you know, what I'm thinking is, as
That
we
committee has chosen themselves.
perhaps grow programs,
And not pass on any
are we
raise.
looking carefully at all of our programs to make sure that we are,
I'm putting,
you know, I mean, we have grown like our AP classes. So as we grow our AP classes, are we adding, do we continue to add personnel? Or are we balancing somehow?
Or more than better.
Or any new program? Or early college, I mean, look how much it's.
Yeah, so are there, which makes me wonder, are there grants out there that are untapped? Because we have so many innovative things going on.
I thought that was because we were.
That's what the. There might be some untapped money.
A stands for Aaron.
That watches for that.
A stands for Aaron. And A's my middle name.
Barb, like, are you the one
Underneath that, I'll
that,
put
for
evaluate
programs that watches these, see if we can find grants? Do we have somebody that just looks at it?
We always, I mean, I'm always looking for something. They'll put it out and say, you know, here's a grant, but, you
As we,
know,
yeah.
even the DOE doesn't even offer any things anymore because they don't get the extra money. 2 years ago, they gave us a little bit of extra money to do something with, but
I just think it'd be
they don't offer it. I'll tell you who looks for grants is Karen Kimball.
Yeah.
She looks for all kinds of things.
Misty and I do a lot of looking too. We go to the state websites and just kind of.
It's not like, I can't tell you what value this would have, but one of the things I've been noticing lately, I wonder if it would do us, as we hire in the office, if we were to hire differently.
Take your chair.
Qualifications to where
Our time about over.
get more done with.
On our second page.
Because I think there's some, like in some of the schools.
They have like multiple.
Handle a little bit.
Misty, I just want you to know, on behalf of
What I was going to ask you about was the time clock, the time clock deal.
with an A.
I hear make you think we're getting
Rolling
ripped off, like
along.
we were better off when we weren't doing it because they would stay over and not charge us.
Well, some of them.
Now it's almost like it's like, okay, I gotta go get checked out because they're waiting. My timer's gonna.
Misty, you can stay there.
That has an A in it.
Or sometimes it's checked again. New jams on. Put new jams on.
Because your supervisor will let you
Chart way back there, Mrs. Stewart.
Okay, so my question is this. I don't think I got what they got down
Here's the flip side
in
with
the back.
portable care.
What's up
You have
with
to have a
that?
measure.
What's that?
I saw, them feeding in there, reaching in and
Well, that's the
stuff.
same thing that's in your little box.
With that bag? Oh, I haven't opened up. Oh, this is Kelly's.
That's mine. Get
That's
your
Kelly's,
hand.
I'm sorry. This is mine.
They're butterscotch chair.
Allie made. Oh, that's nice.
They're from Allie.
I don't have the plastic.
I'm afraid that I will.
No, it's just a different container. Some are in plastic bags and some are in.
Do you need us to
pretty.
put a pause in the meeting so you
Saw
can
them
listen?
eating down there, Susie.
Not ready.
Come down there and just
But no, with
That's
those.
perfect.
I know, I had one and I was like, how do
I
I
was gonna
use
put it
the
in my
camera?
You do like this?
Okay, if we could come back together and share what we've discussed. Group 1.
Oh, gosh.
Elisa, you have the chart?
Yes, we talked about one obvious one, would be attrition. We had the retirement workshop last night for those interested in retirement. We probably have 15 staff members there. Not sure that we'll have 15, but I think we'll probably have at least 10 for next year.
I highly recommend it.
It works best,
I
doesn't it?
took your recommendation.
We have calculated between 20 and 25,000 per person that we would stand to save in the ensuing year. And that's fairly conservative, could be more, but it usually isn't less than that.
Because
So-
that would be with replacing with the,
Right. So that would be about at 10, that would be about a $250,000 savings.
But the thing about that is that sometimes we're not able to do that because of their specific position.
licensing, right. Is that what you mean?
Well, not necessarily with licensing, but when I think of attrition, I think of not replacing, right?
And that would be some of it, though that's not what this is. We're just
Okay.
not replacing the high-dollar teacher with another high-dollar teacher.
Okay, I got you.
We also discussed reducing the amount of overtime. We're just high at this point in this school year with the amount of overtime.
We think we could trim about 100,000
Wow.
in the course of a year.
And then looking at the high school traditional schedule again, the semester as opposed to trimester, that would reduce some staff. And and we also added looking at flexible schedules for students who need more time or more classes in order to get everything finished. Now with the trimesters, they have another chance in the same academic year. And so how could we give them additional chances? We don't want to even look at arts or creative arts at this point. Susie talked a little bit about assigning financial goals and then recognizing individual buildings for successes. We decided not to reward because we're trying to save money, so we'll recognize.
Well, like with a star or
An
apple, or good job, you know.
Dollar sign. Or, you know.
Yeah.
And then re-examine staff duties. Not only re-examine staff duties, but look at each position and ask the question, can we realign? We have a treasurer's position at Dennis, and we're looking now, is there a way we can fill that without hiring a new person?
And when we talk about staff, we're talking about all levels, administrative, clerical, just examining what it is that we need, how we're going about it right now to see if there are any efficiencies. There probably are. To go back to the design, a traditional type schedule at the high school could yield anything from 2 to 4 positions. And that would be maintaining the same program. We think in Group 1, we talked about the importance of staying away from programs if at all possible. Maintain the current programs, just look at how we go about offering those programs.
I think that's the key.
We
I don't think any of us want to do away with programs, but how efficient are we?
Right.
With those
trade-offs.
programs?
That's what I would want to see. What are the trade-offs? Because we obviously made some trade-offs when we went to trimester that turned out to be positive in the long run. So what would we be trading off if we were to do that?
Well,
And we
that
just-
was on our list as well, and I think I was on the board when we went from semesters to trimesters, and it was driven educationally. So
It was at the time that we had that really bad name associated with us that we don't like to remember too much. But it was an effort.
A strategy before
A
that.
strategy to respond to raising the graduation rate and helping get people more flexibility.
Which it did, which is why
think
I
it
really
was-
want
I
to
think
look at
it
the
was
trade-off.
before
And
that.
so, yes, but I think we also need to look at ourselves the way we are now and figure out what it is that we need to sustain that. And we shouldn't be sustaining that based on enrollments and behaviors of 10 or 15 years ago. We need to be doing it based on our current picture.
I guess I'm not quite sure what you mean.
The culture's changed, I think,
That-
somewhat.
So are you saying the culture's changed, that it doesn't support the trimester schedule?
She's just saying maybe we
No,
can.
I think at the time when we had the huge dropout problem, that there's been such an emphasis on graduation that we have changed the mind culture of our kids and parents, that graduation is critical and it's important. And so some of these things that we put in place to give kids every chance possible, if we look at it a little bit differently now, with the mindsets they have now, the ones that truly are struggling, if we can figure out some kind of a flexible schedule so they can get those extra credits that they need, we'd be okay. And plus, with the dual credit, we've got so many dual credits at high school now that it's in conflict with the universities that they're trying to partner with.
Well, the switch from semester to trimester was several years before that report came out.
Yes.
I mean, that was, we didn't do that switch to do, I'm almost sure of that.
Well,
They
I
know
would, I
before
would beg
that.
to differ. My very first fall, I gave you all a report that said it was a 55% graduation rate. It wasn't caught by the media at that time because it wasn't the official rate, so there wasn't a lot of.
It didn't have a catchy name to it.
No, it didn't. But I think I said actual as opposed to reported. And what we did then was to put a lot of different pieces in place. We really had a lot of action happening before the state ever acknowledged that we had a graduation rate problem. And that's what you recall. I recall a conversation in my office, the two of us, you and I, before that vote. You were very concerned at that time about what the trimester schedule would do to kids who were
AP
in the
classes.
arts.
Yeah,
Mhm.
arts and AP classes.
And so it had a downside even then for some students, but it was part of what we put together to, acknowledge that we had a dropout issue too. And I think it's helped that.
Well, the
But-
question I asked in our group was, do we have enough time? I mean, it would have to be evaluated how we think it's going to affect us educationally. Do you think we'll have enough time for us to actually realize that savings in 2015, or should that be a 2016 goal?
I see.
Well, I think those are good. That's a good question, and
Sure
I think
is.
that there may be some strategies here that, if we decided to implement them, we might want to phase them in or implement them at a little bit later date. But that doesn't mean we shouldn't consider it.
Oh, well, I'm not
Yeah.
saying we shouldn't consider it. The purpose of us getting in our groups was how can we affect cash flow for 2015?
Oh, I
I'm
didn't
saying
see it that way.
I'm not so sure that we could use that as a short-term.
I saw it as how can we save, period.
I guess I was looking at how can we pick up 500,000. So.
Yeah. Yeah, that's because that's where we are.
Right.
That's real.
Well, let's transition over to group two.
Okay, we were group 2 back here, and we also said attrition, but it was a given, so we didn't write it down. It was one that we just knew that's what we always do, so we're going to continue to do it. We said to look at the semester structure as well and take a look into that. We said look at our service agencies, Centerstone, CIS, Boys and Girls Club, Student Transit, and see if there's any efficiencies that we can find there or any things that could still make some positive impacts but maybe cost a little less. We did say overtime and flexible hours with the staff as well. We said to also look into our purchasing process and possibly share services with maybe someone else in our area. Maybe what you would think of kind of as a cooperative environment, but to take a look at that as being a possibility. To take a look at possibly transitioning or shifting some costs to other funds if they could handle it. That's something that would be dependent on budget availability in those other funds, but it's an option, as we took the approach that everything could be on the table. We also said take a look at the number of days per contract for employee groups, take a look at the hours per day, take a look at the days per week. We thought that that was a way that we might be able to save some and still maintain services. Also, take a look at our volunteering, really utilize those services and organize that and help do some of what we do with paid staff, maybe with volunteers. Or some of those overtime hours might go away if we have volunteers to help do some things. Also, tap into our alumni resources, possibly as a way to help the budget out. To take a look at if our classes at any of our schools, and not just classes but programs in general, are in balance with the degree of student population loss, and really take a look at that and see, are we overstaffed, understaffed, overspent, underspent. Following that same line, do we add costs when we add programs? And are we adjusting for those added costs in other areas to balance or to net that expense? Also take a greater look at grant funding and if there's possibilities that we could find grants to help with some of the things that we do, and to, as we hire more efficient staff that are able to multitask in different ways, that possibly as we look at positions and maybe change some things there, if we can hire a little differently, maybe we can do things a little differently. That's what we got. Questions or thoughts?
Ready?
Group three.
So group 3, similar conversations, actually, very similar conversations, but what we put down is there was discussion that in our master planning, that the biggest hit that really took in master planning were our elementary buildings. And we are tight in our elementary buildings. And that's actually, elementary is where, believe it or not, our enrollment growth is in elementary. So there was discussion of reviewing secondary 5 to 12 buildings, and specifically mentioned the high school, of staffing structure there as well, classes, how those buildings operate. Benefits did come into the conversation. Again, we understand that's somewhat of a long-term, if we're talking about contracts with other staff, so benefit was mentioned there. The realigning of semesters, trimesters conversation did happen in our group as well, and I'll leave it at that since we've already had those conversations. Central office and high school administrator restructuring evaluation, looking at staffing here, staffing there as well, and evaluate the cost of athletic events at all schools. Would it be best to be at one building instead of a lot of buildings? That was also discussed. And then we also did talk about renegotiating contract with our student service, community schools, Boys and Girls Club, and Centerstone for specific contracts of those services, and evaluate their effectiveness, and overtime reductions were discussed as well.
I'm sorry. I should note that we're still in discussion with the teachers, with the REA, and we have invited them to come back together after we've talked to them with some ideas of their own. They're having ideas. I know they're in discussion at different groups, with different groups. So this will be an ongoing conversation with some recommendations very, very soon. I would guess maybe even at the next meeting, there may be some recommendations.
Great. Okay, great work session. Good thoughts. Now we just have to make them all work.
That's right.
Okay, we are ready for our second public commentary. And seeing not many public out there, I don't think we probably have anyone, do we? Okay. Then we are ready for board reports, old business.
We had a finance meeting yesterday, and we discussed a couple items. The budget analysis is one of the items that we discussed. We also talked about the RFP process for Garrison, and how we're going through that. So there's been, I had missed the document of the proposed timeline that Ron Cross had given us all. So that's by us approving the resolution tonight, that I think we're going to try to follow that timeline fairly close. If we see a few opportunities that we can.
Do you want it? I have it if you want it.
I think we got it, don't you?
We do.
So if we see any opportunities that we can condense it, we might, but I don't really think we're going to condense it a lot. There was a topic or an item brought up, and I'm sorry, I don't know whether, I can't remember whether it was Karen or Rob that brought it up about mothballing Garrison as a consideration.
Right, we're going to start that process ASAP.
There's
For the cost savings on the fuel oil that we have to.
Yeah, $20,000 expense in fuel oil that we needed to spend instantly. So, is there anything else that you wanted to add on that, or?
Well, the mothballing will be about 7,000 to 8,000, isn't that what
That's an
you said?
estimate. Glenn Slifer's getting a quote on that for local service, so.
Can we get an update on that then, when it, I mean, just so
Yes,
we know?
yes.
Okay,
Well,
thanks.
and it may have to happen before the actual next meeting, because we will run out of fuel before Christmas. So what we're planning on is to winterize basically the building in order to not have to buy the fuel. And it will save that difference between the 20 to 25 that we would have to put in fuel down to the 7 or 8 that it could cost.
Good
and
to
then-
explain that to the public so they know we're not.
Right, and once we get the quote and once we get all of the information on all that it will take, we'll bring that back.
Okay, thanks.
We'll have some, we talked about some other things about the Garrison process as we'll go through. I confirmed with Ron that we were looking at getting the quotes for demolishing both the building and tearing down cabin and moving it, and that RFP process, and we're talking whether we want to consider gifting as an option, and I think it was kind of determined that really gifting really hasn't become a consideration at this point because we're looking at recouping money. So that's something that you probably ought to think about, because if we're going to walk away from the idea completely of gifting, then I think we should also state that fairly soon so people don't get their hopes up.
Yeah. Did you say you looked at that, talked about that in the finance meeting?
Well, I brought up some questions about the gifting since Mr. Cross was there. My concern, one of the concerns I've always had in the very beginning is I feel like we, as a school board, have a responsibility to make sure that that building doesn't sit in disrepair like the school building does in the middle of Boston.
Agreed.
So I was asking Mr. Cross some questions like, if gifting was an option or a consideration, what could we put any kind of
Control
clawbacks
that,
in?
yeah.
How could we control that? Could we require financial statements for 2, 3, 4, 5 years, or so we could see that they could support the building? I just wanted to have an idea from Mr. Cross if that was something that we were going to consider, what kind of control that we could have. So I bring it up now only to mention that we didn't really come to a consensus or anything on it, but the feeling I had is gifting really isn't an option that we're looking at right now. So I think we need to, if that's the position the board wants to hold.
Shame we should say
Jackie,
so.
Could you clarify for me, are you talking about gifting of the cabin or gifting of Garrison?
Gifting of Garrison.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah, gifting of Garrison.
It was one of the options that was presented at one point in
That-
time.
I do
is the
recall that
value
was there, but-
if it was donated, yeah.
But I think we'll have more time to talk about it, because if you'll remember the timeline, so I think somewhere around in March, all of these bids will be converging at the same time. So I was just trying to cover all aspects, because I have been contacted about if we are interested in gifting.
Yeah, I've heard
So,
from too.
And I think the only other thing that there's two other things that we talked about. One is Karen has come out with a proposed timeline for our sod roll contract negotiations. They're still in the process of looking at the contract where they can come back with savings. So there is it's not written in stone, but at least it's some kind of a timeline that we can take a look at. And we'll have, she's still waiting on information to come back on that. And so I would expect that we should start to see stuff flow in January sometime. So is that a fair statement, Karen?
Yeah, our plan is to at least provide, the plan is to provide the Finance Committee with at least some scenarios and if not recommendations, but at least reviews of possibilities at the January Finance Committee meeting, which will be the 13th, at least right now. And then bring to the board after the Finance Committee has had a couple of weeks to review it and to get their feeling on it, to bring to the board at the last January meeting what the review is. And then from there, and I'll bring this up.
I think you guys also got a copy of that too, didn't you, in your email?
I don't think I had that in the email.
Well, I thought it was attached to the Garrison timeline.
It might have been.
Yeah.
This is the timeline that
It was
we
attached
talked
to the
about
Garrison
yesterday. We did move that January 14th back to the second meeting in January, and that's to provide the Finance Committee some extra time to look at it and to gather their information. It also allows me time to answer any questions in between times that the Finance Committee might have, that I can get back with Student Transit and get some answers that way as well.
And that's pretty much all we talked about as far as the student transit went. And the last thing that we kind of discussed was being a new committee, we're still trying to establish our processes and our roles, because what I don't want, and none of us want, we don't want a duplication of, we don't want a finance meeting on Tuesday and a board meeting on Wednesday, and we talk about the same thing at both meetings, because if that's the case, then we might as well just have it at the board meeting on Wednesday night and not worry about the finance committee. So each of the members have been, that were there, as well as you guys, we're kind of trying to define our role and our process and get a little bit more concrete in it, so we understand. And we're supposed to be thinking about that, so when we come back to our next finance meeting, we want it to be beneficial for everybody, and we don't want a duplication of service, and yet we want everybody informed. So, and since it's a public meeting, sometimes we may now, we got to be careful what we say, because I've been around when we had a newspaper that was like a tiger, and we don't want to throw an idea out in a brainstorming session, and then it show up on the paper next day, because then people are going to think it's fact. And so we've got to balance.
It's happened before.
We've got to balance how we have those discussions and be transparent at the same time. Is that a fair assessment? And that was it.
Thank you. Suzanne, did you want to say something?
I just wanted to mention that the communication and marketing group, one of the things that came up in our studies, obviously, was that in our enrollment count, the high school was hardest hit. And so we had a meeting with the principal, Ray Wolpe, members of the committee, and just discussed the strengths of that particular program and what kinds of things we would like to be packaging going forward, and making sure that we have all of the best. And then also some of the places where we think maybe we need some further training on behalf of the folks in the building, as far as meeting new prospective students at the front door and stuff like that. So.
Okay, thank you. One of the things that I wanted to share is about our superintendent search. As we all know, our own Dr. Borf is leaving us soon. And so we are in the process tonight. We interviewed a person for interim superintendent, and we should hopefully be making that announcement soon, and hopefully we will have a special board meeting to approve that person's contract and to greet her and or him and get the ball rolling for our interim. As far as our superintendent search is concerned, we approved at our last meeting to work with the search team from, it's based out of Indiana University, but there are members from Ball State and from Indiana State and Purdue and IU that will be working with us. We have a meeting set up with them next Thursday. We do not yet have a completed contract with them, but that will be coming forth soon. And we will be outlining the process, and so that everyone will know exactly what that process is going to look like. I can tell you that in some respects, at the last board meeting, we kind of divvied up the responsibilities amongst the board. And one of the groups, I believe that Kelly and Susie and Aaron are heading up, have already had an opportunity to work with at least one group, haven't you?
Eric.
So, and you might want to share if there are any other plans in the making for our search. So,
While we don't have specific times and places set up, we are welcoming participation at various community events that may already be scheduled, where people might perhaps have some input. One of the things that happened in our meeting with the parent group, which I thought was we should all feel good about, is that they have confidence in the board search committee and want to be kept aware of what is going on, so that, but at the same time, they really expressed support of the board, so that I felt very encouraged by that.
yes. Okay, does anyone else have anything that they want to share about our search team or?
Be watching for a survey, yes, at some point?
Yes.
So we will try to keep everyone updated, and I guess right now the important thing before us is to ensure that we have an interim superintendent. And so that's where our efforts have really been focused, although we've also done some thinking about our superintendent search also. But we'll gear that up in January.
On the subject of the survey, we have identified our survey tool, and I hope that we will have it up on the website by the start of next week, so that we can get that up. The public can begin responding to our survey questions. I just need to, it's just a technical deal, getting it up there.
Okay, great. Anything else? Okay.
It doesn't have
Dixie.
anything to do with the search.
Well, we'll cut that and go to the next.
Well, I just think we should mention this incredible artwork here in the boardroom.
If
It's
you haven't,
really,
you can't see the carrots, you need to come in and see the carrots.
There's some, I think,
because there's
Sunflowers,
some
too,
really
right?
nice things up.
There are.
Carrots, corn, sunflower.
Lots.
Beautiful.
Absolutely. Okay.
This is the time of year for all the Christmas holiday programs too. So there's activities, seems like, in every building everywhere.
Lots going on. Lots of showcasing of our students. So we are ready to preview our upcoming meeting and events.
Well, the next regular meeting of the board is the reorganization of the board and the reorganization meeting. It's in January, and that meeting is consumed by a number of responsibilities that the board has to reorganize itself if it sees fit, to reorganize itself, its officers, to approve policies, to appoint the attorney, to appoint a legislative liaison, actually to talk about the meetings of the upcoming year, schedule of the meetings of the upcoming year. So it's a heavy agenda. It's traditional. It's prescribed by law, so you don't have any choice on that. But it also will involve, at least from tonight's meeting, it's going to involve the second reading of the policy on service learning. So among other things, that's what you'll be dealing with.
Okay.
And you won't be worrying about it, will you?
I won't be here.
Okay, it's time for our press conference. Anyone from the press? Questions? Okay, we must have been pretty thorough then. And now we're ready for superintendent comments.
Yes, and this is a little unusual, but since it's my last meeting, I thought I would take some liberties. If you could turn the lights down just a bit. For the former educators on the board, this should look pretty familiar. This is Bloom's taxonomy, And we use this as we create some of our expectations for students, as we devote our time to course development and so on. But I wanted to walk you through that just very quickly and show you how we're being moved in education in general, not just public education, but education in general is being moved from the remembering really towards the creating. And you know, in education for the last, I don't know how long, the creating piece, the evaluating piece was more of a byproduct of the instruction. The instruction was really focused on maybe up to 4, up to analyzing. It was really focusing on the remembering, the understanding, the applying, but most of our assessments, standardized assessments, were focusing on the remembering and the understanding. We are being not just expected, we're being pushed. The Common Core was all about that, to get us up to working through instruction and assessment to the creating piece. And I think it's important for you to bear in mind that Bloom's taxonomy, though it's a dated reference guide, it's been updated, never used to be remembering on the bottom, or creating on the top, as a matter of fact. It's a handy guide to show you what's being expected of us today and to guide some of your thinking as you work towards the realization of your vision. Your vision is in line with this. When you think about it, the vision is nurturing mind, body, and spirit to prepare for choice, purpose, and service. Creating is part of it. I mean, that's the peak. And I wanted you to bear that in mind as I talk about the areas of critical focus that I'm leaving you with. We have started our conversation about the technology and digital conversion. Technology and digital conversion almost make the path towards creating effortless. I mean, it makes it happen. Project Lift, which is with the Redevelopment Commission still, is hand in hand with the technology. And I think that if we don't bring that back before the Redevelopment Commission, they might even be disappointed. I don't know, Kelly. Maybe I'm not accurate there, but I've been told by some of the members of the Redevelopment Commission that they do want to know more about it.
I think there have been conversations that have gone on since it was proposed that would be really beneficial for the rest of the commission to hear concerning that.
Yeah, and that needs to happen. The project-based learning that we have talked about from time to time, that our service learning was all about tonight, is right up there on the creating piece. The project-based learning is where kids can come together with one another or even on their own. They're creating their own learning. And that's what technology is all about as well, to make that kind of environment happen. And of course, in all this, appropriate assessment is what we continue to hammer away at. And the appropriate assessment is going to be changing. The I-STEP is changing. The testing environment that the state has put together is in a rapid state of flux. So we're going to continue to work with that. For the Richmond Community Schools, I hope that you continue to look for that mix, and this goes right down to the teachers. I'll be talking to them a little bit about this in some correspondence. Continue to work towards that mix of rigor and compassion. When we talk about a high poverty area, I think it's easy to be, when we're trying to be compassionate, to be sympathetic. And these kids don't need sympathy. They need to be challenged. They need to be expected to perform and compete with students who have more going for them in the way of support from home, from the community. That's how they're going to succeed. And we know that. I think we just need to keep saying it. Continued support, therefore, for rigorous coursework. The early college, we heard that tonight. It needs to continue to be enhanced and supported. It's growing, and not only won you some acclaim nationally, but I think it could do it again as we see it finished at the high school. Project Lead the Way, we don't hear much about it, but it's one of our most rigorous electives at the high school, and it continues to draw large numbers. And I just remember the time about 9 years ago when we were looking at Project Lead the Way and we were told, we don't have the student body for that. We almost have to have a waiting line for that course, those courses. Development of our intermediate program is still we're still waiting for that development. The intermediate program was never designed to be a 5-8 middle school or a 5-8 junior high. We're still struggling to try to make that intermediate piece, that unique middle section of our continuum, come together as it should. It could be an exciting 4 years for those kids, and we still need to be working towards making that happen. Science and social studies at the elementary, I don't have an answer for anyone on that, because our focus has been so much on math and reading, and it still needs to be. But if we don't work more social studies and science into those areas, we're going to pay a substantial price, and so will our students. So we need to keep working towards that. And you've said it tonight, the focus on the arts here in Richmond is a mainstay. I think it's how we identify ourselves in many ways, and we have to continue that focus. Funding is going to be a challenge, not just for the Richmond Community Schools, but for all schools across the state, maybe across the country. Continue to look at how the General Assembly is working on that complexity index. It's an ongoing conversation, and it's changed a little bit even in the last few weeks. So be thinking about that, be watching it. I know Karen is on top of it, and she's going to be monitoring how that affects our budget. Our facilities are in pretty nice shape. We have beautiful facilities. We have a historical centerpiece over there in the high school, but the high school needs to be addressed. And as recently as last week, we sat down with Jane Herndon by phone, who was with Ice Miller, and we talked about what it's going to take to move that project forward. And now is the time that you start working on that plan, even if it's going to be 2019 when we actually do what will probably end up being a referendum for that building. There are opportunities in funding to do a nice project with a minimal impact on the tax rate, but there will probably be one. And lastly, I'd say if our recent successes over the last few years are any indication of what kind of future the district can have, I think RCS is destined for a very bright future, I think, in the immediate future as well as the distant future. So my best to everyone. Thank you.
Thank you. Well, that brings us to the bell ringer, and I asked Dr. Borff to do the bell ringer tonight, or no, maybe I told you.
You said that you were going to be doing the bell ringer.
I was a little more assertive than that. I told him that I was going to do the bell ringer tonight. And because I think it's appropriate that tonight our bell ringer is to honor Dr. Borff for his dedication and his 10 years plus of service to Richmond, the Richmond community, and Richmond Community Schools. You and Melissa will be missed.
Thank you.
Your leadership skills have provided our students with limitless possibilities. Your community involvement has fostered partnerships that greatly benefit our students. Your forward thinking has helped build a financially solvent school district. Your professionalism exemplifies the integrity of this noble profession called teaching. Your problem-solving skills have made tough decisions more palatable. And your friendship has made all who have known you a better person. And so, we wish you the best as you begin your new endeavor at Hamilton Southeastern. I'm really kind of ticked at them. I have to get over it. And we bid you a fond farewell.
Thank you.
Maybe we'll get some of their
Well, you had both of my children, and now you have my grandson. Oh, my gosh, your grandson, my grandson is in Fishers.
Really?
Yeah.
Dixie, are you the legislative?
He's a
No,
secretary.
I was. Kelly is now.
Kelly is.
We were in an apartment over there last weekend.
With them leaving.